Chapter 1623. The palace master of Fengtian Palace took a deep look at Qin Feiyang. He was getting more and more curious. What exactly happened to Qin Feiyang? Why was he so indifferent to fame and fortune at such a young age? Buzz. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's image crystal rang. Is it Mu Qing? The palace master of Fengtian Palace was taken aback and asked. Qin Feiyang said, "Most likely it should be him." After saying that, he took out the image crystal. An illusionary figure swiftly appeared. Who else could it be but Mu Qing? Why are you still in the desert? Qin Feiyang frowned. Because the scene behind Mu Qing was the desert. From this, it could be seen. They had not left the desert yet. Mu Tianyang appeared beside Mu Qing and looked at Qin Feiyang. Is there no room for negotiation? Obviously. Mu Qing had already known through the heavenly eye that Qin Feiyang had arrived at the river of erosion. Originally, they wanted to enter the devil's land before Qin Feiyang. But now it was obviously impossible. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and nodded. Yes, but I don't know if you can do it. Say it. Mu Tianyang said. Let's join forces to destroy the Tianyang Empire. As for the grudges between us, we can wait until we leave the Black Tortoise realm and slowly settle it. Qin Feiyang said. Join forces with you to destroy our Tianyang Empire? Do you think we are idiots? How could we do such a stupid thing? Mu Qing said angrily. Don't say it so righteously. I think those people in the Tianyang Empire don't treat you very well, and even reject you. Qin Feiyang said. Mu Qing's eyes darkened. It seems that it is as I expected. Actually, thinking about it, although they are your clansmen, they have already created a brand new Tianyang Empire in the Black Tortoise realm. If they can leave the Black Tortoise realm, it will be a different story. But they can't leave. Thus, they simply do not care about the life and death of you two clansmen. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he looked at Mu Tianyang and said, Even though you used to be the war god. Mu Tianyang sighed and nodded. You're right. I've had enough of these people. For you to say that, it means that they have bullied you a lot. You are Mu Tianyang, a war god, yet you are being bullied by a bunch of clowns. Even I feel bad for you. Qin Feiyang sighed. Don't be so fake. Don't you want to get rid of the Heavenly Sun Empire first before getting rid of me and the Lord? Mu Qing's face was full of disdain. Why don't you believe me? I know my limits. It's not that easy to kill the two of you. My initial plan was only to get rid of the Heavenly Sun Empire here. Qin Feiyang said helplessly. It's pointless to say more. Mu Qing snorted and immediately turned off the image crystal. The two of them were indeed standing in the air above the desert. In front of them was the undead mountain range. Mu Qing kept the image crystal and looked at Mu Tianyang. Lord, what should we do now? Mu Tianyang shook his head. For a moment, there was nothing he could do. You can't go any further. Suddenly, a majestic voice sounded out of thin air. Who is it? The two of them were shocked and quickly scanned their surroundings. But there was not a single shadow around. Is it an illusion? The two of them looked at each other. However, just as they retracted their gaze, they suddenly looked at the void on their left. There was a giant python floating there. You are. Mu Tianyang's eyes widened in anger. Mu Qing was also shocked. Greetings, Lord Guardian. The next moment, the two of them bowed in unison. The giant python looked at the two of them and sneered. You have a good memory. You actually still remember me. Senior's power I dare not forget. Mu Qing said. The giant python had appeared when Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were fighting. Of course he knew. Mu Tianyang looked up at the giant python and asked suspiciously. Lord, you just said that we can't go any further. Why is that? Wait a minute. The giant python glanced at the void of the desert behind them and said coldly. I don't like being spied on. Get out immediately. Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing turned their heads and looked over in surprise. Before his voice faded, a middle-aged man appeared and hurriedly ran to the front of the giant python. He respectfully prostrated himself in the void and said, Greetings, Lord Guardian. It's him? Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. This person was the emperor who had expelled him and Mu Qing previously. He actually followed them. At this moment, In front of the guardian, this emperor's previous domineering and majestic aura had disappeared. He was like a pitiful dog wagging its tail. Mu Tianyang's eyes were full of disdain. He looked at Mu Qing and said, "Why don't you use the omniscient eye to track his whereabouts? My attention is all on Qin Feiyang. I don't have the mood to care about him." Mu Qing smiled bitterly. "Get up," the giant python said. "Yes." The middle-aged man got up and stood aside respectfully. The giant python glanced at Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing and said, "I don't want you to continue because there's an ambush ahead." "Ambush? Who's ambushing? Qin Feiyang? But isn't Qin Feiyang in the river of bone erosion now?" Mu Qing was surprised. "It's Qin Feiyang. He and the palace master of the celestial palace did go to the river of bone erosion, but the others of the celestial palace stayed at the entrance. Once you go there, you'll definitely die," the giant python said. "What?" Mu Tianyang and the other two's expressions changed. The middle-aged man glared at Mu Qing and said, "Don't you have the omniscient eye? Why don't you check their whereabouts?" "Nonsense. If I want to check, I'll check on the two main figures, Qin Feiyang and the palace master of the celestial palace. Why should I check on the others? Is there something wrong with your brain? If you're so arrogant, why don't I see you being arrogant in front of Qin Feiyang? If you have the guts, go ahead," Mu Qing said angrily. The middle-aged man was so angry that his body trembled violently. "Well said." Mu Tianyang laughed secretly. The giant python looked at the three and said angrily, "Shut up." Mu Qing looked coldly at the middle-aged man in her eyes, then looked at the giant python and asked in confusion, "Senior, may I ask why you want to help us?" The giant python snorted and said, "Of course it's to deal with Qin Feiyang." "What? Senior also has a grudge with Qin Feiyang?" Mu Qing was surprised. "Yes." The giant python nodded. "That's not right. With Senior's strength, it's not easy to kill Qin Feiyang. Why do you need our help?" Mu Qing said suspiciously. As soon as the giant python heard this, it immediately remembered the scene that happened in front of the entrance, and its eyes were full of hostility. "Mu Qing, it's very strong. Back then, Qin Batian wanted to force his way from the second floor to the first floor because of a woman, and he was almost killed by it. So don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Just do as you're told," Mu Tianyang said secretly. "What? You saw him back then?" Mu Qing's expression changed. "Yes." Mu Tianyang nodded. Mu Qing's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly said, "Senior, what do you want us to do? Please tell us." The giant python looked at Mu Qing and said, "You're quite interesting. You're as bold as Qin Feiyang." "Senior, please forgive me," Mu Qing hurriedly said, thinking that the giant python was angry. "I just praised you, and now you immediately show a cowardly and incompetent look. It seems that there is still a gap between you and Qin Feiyang. But there's one thing that you're better than Qin Feiyang," the giant python said. "Senior, please tell me," Mu Qing said. "You're more sensible than him. I like young people like you." The giant python laughed. "Senior's words have truly shocked this junior," Mu Qing said. "Do you want to live?" The giant python looked at the three of them and said. The three of them nodded at the same time. "Okay. I'll take you to a place later. Even if Qin Feiyang has the ability to reach the heavens, he won't be able to find you," the giant python said confidently. "Thank you, my lord." "Thank you, senior." The three of them hurriedly thanked it. The giant python glanced at the undead mountain range, and a rule force suddenly fell from the sky and blasted toward a mountain in the distance. The target was the cedar trees that surrounded Zhuge As soon as they sensed the rule force, those cedar trees immediately scattered. "What's the situation?" Zhuge was stunned. "Hurry up and come over here," the giant python shouted. "This is..." Zhuge eyes trembled, and he hurriedly flew toward the giant python. What happened just now? Why did the rule force descend? At the same time, the woman hiding in the space divine object looked at the undead mountain range in surprise. The second elder and the others behind her were also horrified. Suddenly, the black-robed old man's eyes trembled. He looked at the woman and said cautiously, Madam, could it be that the guardian has descended? Guardian. The woman's body trembled and nodded. It must be it because only it can control the rule force. Quickly inform Qin Feiyang and the others. The black-robed old man immediately took out an image crystal and sent a message to the palace master of Fengtian Palace. What? The guardian has appeared. When he heard the news, the palace master of Fengtian Palace was also shocked. But Qin Feiyang, who was at the side, had a trace of hostility in his eyes. This damned beast was really like a lingering spirit that refused to disperse. He looked at the black-robed old man and asked, "Is Mu Tianyang and the others with it?" "I don't know. We don't dare to go out now." The black-robed old man shook his head. Qin Feiyang's face sank. He immediately opened the portal and descended at the entrance, then rushed toward the desert like lightning. Yu Huang also chased after him. "Brother Qin, don't go." The palace master of Fengtian Palace followed and hurriedly shouted. The woman also appeared from the space divine object. She looked in the direction of the desert with a face full of horror. The guardian actually appeared. Why was that? Soon, Qin Feiyang rushed to the sky above the cedar forest. Seeing that Zhuge Mingyang had disappeared, he was furious. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was about to continue to rush over, Yu Huang hurriedly stretched out his tail and pulled Qin Feiyang, shouting, "Brat Qin, bear with it for a while. Now you don't have the blood chi pearl, so you can't provoke it." The plan was about to succeed, but it completely disrupted it. "How can I bear it?" Qin Feiyang said angrily. "Brother Qin, it is the guardian, the master of this miracle, the sky here. You can't beat it, forget it." The palace master of Fengtian Palace also flew over and persuaded. "That's right. You are an ant, I am the sky." "You are an ant. How can you beat me, the sky?" Before the palace master of Fengtian Palace finished speaking, the giant python's voice sounded in the sky. Then, the giant python brought Zhuge Mingyang, Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and the middle-aged man to the void above. Chapter 1624. Greetings, Lord Guardian. The palace master of Fengtian Palace quickly knelt in the air and greeted respectfully. "Fengtian Palace is quite bold. How dare you collude with Qin Feiyang?" The giant python said coldly. The palace master of Fengtian Palace turned pale when he heard that. He hurriedly said, "I know my mistake. Please forgive me." "Can't you have some backbone?" Yu Huang raised his eyebrows. The palace master of Fengtian Palace transmitted his voice. "This is a matter of whether I have backbone or not. You can leave the miracle site, but I can't. If I want to live, I have to treat it like an ancestor." "After talking for so long, aren't you just afraid of death?" Yu Huang looked at him with disdain. The palace master of Fengtian Palace didn't deny it. The giant python said, "Since you know your mistake, shouldn't you know what to do?" The palace master of Fengtian Palace was stunned. What should he do? Attack Qin Feiyang? Wouldn't that be a dead end? Unless he could kill Qin Feiyang now, the palace master of Fengtian Palace would definitely be in trouble. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "This has nothing to do with you. Step aside." "Thank you, Brother Qin." The palace master of Fengtian Palace was grateful. "Ant. Tian." Qin Feiyang looked up at the giant python and sneered. "Do you really think you're a big shot? Kid, don't be arrogant." The giant python smiled coldly. "I'm arrogant? Who was the one who made trouble for me in the first place?" "I'll say it again. You have to pay the price for doing wrong." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. With a clang, Chang Shui appeared. "I heard that your chi and blood pearl has been shattered and you can't revive Chang Shui and the ancient castle. Are you sure you want to fight with me?" The giant python sneered. Qin Feiyang glanced at Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing and said, "Did they tell you? Didn't you say it yourself? Why? Are you afraid that we'll tell others?" Mu Qing said, her face full of sarcasm. Qin Feiyang joked, "Then you must think that what I said is true." "What do you mean? Could it be that the chi and blood pearl didn't shatter?" Mu Qing raised her eyebrows. "What do you think?" Qin Feiyang smiled playfully. Mu Qing stared coldly at Qin Feiyang, her eyes flickering. "Cut the crap. Since you've appeared, let's settle this once and for all. Let's see how powerful you are, Tian." Qin Feiyang turned his gaze towards the giant python and coldly shouted. The 6 elders, Willow Tree, Ningmingi and the others all appeared. A total of 60 false gods. Such a lineup could be said to be universally shocking. However, when they saw the guardians, Willow Tree and the others were all frightened out of their wits. The reputation of the guardians was like thunder to the ears. This was a fear that came from the depths of his soul. Do you want to leave the Black Tortoise world? Do you want to leave the divine sight? If you do, then get rid of it with me because it is the obstacle for you to leave the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang shouted secretly. The group of people perked up. Why don't you try? The guardians sneered, looking majestic without being angry. The pupils of the group of people constricted, and they were full of fear again. Qin Feiyang said, Believe me, as long as Chang Shui is revived, killing it won't be a problem. That's right. I've seen Chang Shui's power with my own eyes. Last time at the entrance, the fire dragon and the giant python joined forces, but they couldn't stop Chang Shui's edge. Yu Huang shouted secretly. What? You've already fought with the fire dragon and the giant python? Ning Mingi said in shock. Yes. The fire dragon has been killed by Qin Boy, and the giant python has fled, so you don't have to be afraid of it at all. Yu Huang said. The fire dragon has been killed? The group of people was dumbfounded. I don't want to say it a second time. Qin Feiyang shouted angrily. Willow Tree gritted his teeth and stepped in front of Qin Feiyang. He poured out his false god power without holding back and rushed toward Chang Shui. Yu Huang followed closely behind. Looking at Yu Huang and Willow Tree, Ning Mingi gritted his teeth and said, Everyone, if we don't listen to the young master, we will die anyway. Why don't we go crazy with him? Okay. Zhao Tailai nodded. Then let's go crazy. The second elder and the others also shouted. Boom. In an instant, foe gods roared as they charged forward, turning into huge waves that surged toward pale snow. 60 false gods revived Chang Shui at the same time. What kind of concept was that? Clang. In the blink of an eye, Chang Shui, which was floating above Qin Feiyang's head, released a bright divine light. An aura that could destroy the world roared in all directions. The sharp edge tore the sky and split the earth. The void above was shattered and turned into nothingness. Below, the cedars also felt a fatal danger, and quickly pulled up from the ground and fled into the distance. The middle-aged man sneered and said, How dare you fight back in the face of a guardian? You really don't know what death is. Shut up. You don't know Qin Feiyang at all. He never does anything that he's not confident in. Since he dares to fight back, it means that he has the confidence. Mu Tianyang shouted inwardly. I really underestimated this kid's courage. The palace master of the Palace of Heaven, who had retreated far away, was also shocked. He dared to fight back in the face of a guardian? Heavens! How could there be such a terrifying young man? Husband, what should we do? Should we help Qin Feiyang or the guardian? The woman flew to the palace master of the Palace of Heaven and asked secretly, What do you think, madam? The palace master of the Palace of Heaven asked. Qin Feiyang is so confident and fearless. It shows how much he trusts Chang Shui. But his current opponent is after all the guardian of the miracle. This beast has the means to control the rule force. Chang Shui may not be able to kill it. I really don't know what to choose. And at this time, we can't make a decision casually. Because if we make the wrong choice, the Palace of Heaven will face a disaster. The woman sighed. Yes. We can't offend Qin Feiyang. And we can't offend the guardian. Now we can only wait and see. If Chang Shui can really threaten the guardian, then we, the palace master of the Palace of Heaven, hesitated, and then made up his mind. He gritted his teeth and said, We'll help Qin Feiyang. Yes. The woman nodded. In the blink of an eye, seeing Ning Mingi and the others decisively helping Qin Feiyang, the giant python suddenly exuded a shocking murderous aura. If you want to die, this lord will fulfill your wish. Before its voice faded away, a wave of rule force descended from the sky and blasted towards the group of people. Everyone's eyes suddenly had a trace of panic. Don't be afraid. Believe in the young master, believe in Chang Shui. Willow Tree roared. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the rule force. Not only was there no fear in his eyes, but it was burning with the flames of war. It seems that the lesson last time wasn't enough. He smiled proudly. With a wave of his arm, Chang Shui carried a monstrous aura, smashing the sky and blasted towards the rule force. This is the crucial moment. Can pale snow suppress the power of rule force? The palace master of the Palace of Heaven narrowed his eyes and stared at Chang Shui. There was a bit of anxiety and expectation in his eyes. Ning Mingyi and the others were also very nervous. But at the same time, they also worked harder to revive Chang Shui. They didn't hold back at all with the power of the false god. Clang. Chang Shui's power became more and more terrifying, almost reaching the level of Qin Feiyang's qi and blood pearl to revive Chang Shui last time. There was a loud bang. Chang Shui and the rule force finally collided. Cut. Woo-woo. An apocalyptic aura surged out in all directions with a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The void within thousands of miles was instantly annihilated and turned into chaos. The sky also changed color. The wind blew, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. It was as if doomsday was coming. Quickly suppress Chang Shui. Quickly suppress the rule force. People on both sides roared in their hearts. Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, the middle-aged man, and Zhuge Mingyang naturally hoped that the rule force could suppress Chang Shui. Willow Tree and the others certainly hoped that Chang Shui could suppress the rule force. Clang. Boom. Chang Shui and the rule force continued to collide. Everyone didn't dare to blink, afraid that they would miss the most critical scene. The power that Chang Shui is emitting now has far surpassed the fully revived Azure Light Sword and Divine Phoenix Blade. Maybe it can really suppress the rule force. The Palace Master of the Palace of Heaven said excitedly. The results are not out yet. We can't jump to conclusions, the woman secretly said. But before her voice died away, following an earth-shaking rumble, the power of the law shattered. What? The middle-aged man jumped up directly. The rule force was no match? Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and Zhuge Mingyang's faces instantly sank. Even the rule force couldn't stop Chang Shui? This had far exceeded their imagination. Ning Mingyi and the others, Willow Tree, and Yu Huang were naturally excited. Each of them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. There was no longer fear in their eyes. Instead, they looked at the giant python with provocation and eagerness. Help Qin Feiyang. The palace master of Fengtian Palace looked at this scene and decisively made a choice. He turned into a stream of light and rushed to Qin Feiyang's side with the woman, roaring, "Brother Qin, we are here to help you." Oh no! The middle-aged man's eyelids twitched. The giant python's expression was also extremely ugly. Willow Tree glanced at the palace master of Fengtian Palace and sneered. "At least you have a good eye." The palace master of Fengtian Palace smiled embarrassedly. With a wave of his hand, all the fake gods of Fengtian Palace appeared in an instant, including his two sons. The palace master of Fengtian Palace shouted, "Quick, revive Chang Shui with everyone." Boom. Waves of fake god power roared out crazily and rushed into Chang Shui. Clang. With the addition of the palace master of Fengtian Palace, Chang Shui's power doubled in an instant. The terrifying sharpness was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, crazily harvesting everything. The entire departed Soul Mountain was destroyed in an instant. 1, 5, 20, 40, 50. Heavens, the palace master of Fengtian Palace also has 50 fake gods. Mu Qing's heart skipped a beat. 50 plus 60. In other words, Qin Feiyang now had a total of 110 fake gods by his side. Good, very good. Today you will follow me to break this sky, break the rules of this black tortoise world, and then I will treat you to snake soup. Qin Feiyang laughed. 110 fake gods should be enough to fully revive Chang Shui. Snake soup? Everyone was stunned for a moment, then looked at the giant python in unison, their eyes full of sneers. This giant python was a true divine beast, and they had never tasted snake soup before. Kill. Chapter 1625. The giant python's eyes darkened, and with Mu Tianyang and the other two and Zhuge Mingyang, it instantly disappeared into the void, leaving just like that. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and angrily shouted, "Even if you want to leave, you have to leave something for me." Chang Shui angrily slashed out. In the void, a pool of blood emerged. Following closely, a thick giant tail fell from the void. Qin Feiyang, this sovereign will definitely not let you go, just you wait. The giant python's angry roar suddenly echoed in the void, and then it never appeared again. This? Ning Mingyi and the others looked at each other. The dignified guardian of the miracle actually chose to escape? We won. Haha. The guardian of the miracle has been defeated by us. I really didn't even dream of it. Then, the group of people cheered, unprecedentedly excited. We let it run away. What's there to be excited about? Willow Tree raised its eyebrows. Yes. As long as we don't kill it, we will always be in danger. Yu Huang sighed. Willow Tree and Yu Huang's words were like a basin of bone-piercing cold water, splashing Ning Mingyi and the others. They all fell silent, their faces full of worry. Don't worry too much. As long as you follow me, even if it appears, it won't dare to do anything to you. The most important thing to confirm is whether Mu Tianyang and the others are in the Black Tortoise realm right now? Qin Feiyang said. Willow Tree said. I'm afraid they are no longer here after all. It is the guardian of this place. It can definitely erase the devil imprint. The people of the Tianyang Empire are really lucky. Qin Feiyang was a little angry. Let's not worry about it for now. Yu Huang rolled his eyes, looked at the giant tail, and said with a sneaky smile. Didn't you just say that you would treat us to snake soup? Everyone's eyes lit up. This giant python was a divine beast, and its flesh was undoubtedly a great supplement for everyone. Eating it would definitely benefit them greatly. I am a man of my word. Willow Tree, go and bring it over. Prepare a big pot of stew. Qin Feiyang smiled. Lu Mu immediately ran over and picked up the giant tail. He ran in front of Qin Feiyang and chuckled. The weight is not bad. This giant tail was more than 10 meters long and half as thick as a dustpan. It was more than enough for everyone to eat their fill. Where should I stew it? Yu Huang asked. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. Doesn't Ling Yunfei also have an ancient castle? Let's just go to his castle. This way, we can also prevent the giant python from attacking everyone. Yu Huang said. No need. Let's find a place with beautiful scenery nearby, and start the stew. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. This is too crazy. What if the giant python is hiding in the dark and spying on us? Yu Huang was speechless. I want it to see us and piss it off. Qin Feiyang sneered. Everyone looked at each other and smiled helplessly. However, this pot of snake stew was really worth looking forward to. I know a place with beautiful scenery. There is a river next to it, and there are many spirit essences and herbs around. Palace Master Fengtian smiled. Let's go to the place you mentioned. Lead the way. Qin Feiyang said. Palace Master Fengtian opened a portal. A group of people turned into streams of light and rushed in like lightning. In the depths of the desert, the storm whistled and sand filled the sky. Somewhere in the void, Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, the middle-aged man, and Zhuge Mingyang stood together and looked at the giant python opposite them. The giant python had lost its giant tail, and its wound was still bleeding. At this moment, it looked in the direction of the dead spirit mountain and was silent. Its pair of eyes were full of ferocity. Zhuge Mingyang said indifferently, The guardian of the miracle is just so. Whoosh! The giant python turned its head and looked at Zhuge Mingyang. There was a fierce glint in its eyes. What did you say? I dare you to say it again. Am I wrong? As the guardian of the miracle, you can't even defeat Qin Feiyang. Don't you find it embarrassing? Zhuge Mingyang said. The giant python said angrily, Believe it or not, I will kill you. You can only show off in front of us. But to be honest, if you can't control the rule force, I won't be afraid of you. However, your rule force is only useful to us. It is useless to Qin Feiyang. Zhuge Mingyang sneered. Mu Tianyang and the other two looked at Zhuge Mingyang in disbelief. This guy actually dared to mock the guardian? Who gave him the guts? The huge python looked at Zhuge Mingyang sinisterly. In the end, it actually endured it and snorted coldly. In this divine sight, I have 10,000 ways to kill Qin Feiyang. However, I do not dare to do so. Why? Zhuge Mingyang was stunned and looked at it suspiciously. The giant python said, because the existence above is very interested in him. It even clearly said that you are not allowed to kill him. The existence above? The four of them looked at each other. Could it be the creator of the miracle? The giant python said, "It is not the creator, but it is similar to the creator of the miracle. It is an existence that you dare not provoke." The four of them felt their hearts sink. Mu Tianyang said, "Then why didn't the one above let you kill Qin Feiyang? Is it because it has its eyes on Qin Feiyang? Or does it have other motives? If it had other motives, Qin Feiyang would definitely die, because being targeted by such an existence comparable to the creator would definitely not have a good ending. But if this big shot had its eyes on Qin Feiyang, then the situation would be bad for them, because in this way, Qin Feiyang would have a terrifying backer. I don't know its motives. If it doesn't say, I don't dare to ask. However, from its eyes, I can vaguely tell that it doesn't have its eyes on Qin Feiyang. It just finds it interesting and fun." The giant python shook its head. Interesting. Fun. The four of them were speechless. Qin Feiyang was already so strong, and it was called interesting? Just how bored was this so-called big shot? The middle-aged man looked at the giant python and asked carefully, "Sir, may I ask, what should we do now?" The so-called we naturally did not include the giant python. The giant python could leave the black tortoise world at any time. But Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, Zhuge Mingyang, and the middle-aged man could not do anything. Especially the middle-aged man. Being controlled by the devil mark, even if the exit was in front of him, he did not dare to leave the black tortoise world. The giant python glanced at the four of them and remained silent. Zhuge Mingyang frowned and looked at the giant python. "You should be able to take us out of the black tortoise world directly, right?" The giant python glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, Mu Tianyang, and Mu Qing. "I can take the three of you because your devil marks have not formed yet." The three of them sighed in relief. But the middle-aged man's face instantly paled. What the giant python meant was that he could not leave. Mu Qing said, "You are the guardian of this place. You should be able to remove the devil marks, right?" "I can't. Although I can control the power of the rules here, and freely enter any place in the first and second level, the devil marks are outside of the rules. Only the big shots above can remove them. Similarly, there is an even more terrifying lightning punishment that only they can control," the giant python said. The middle-aged man said in despair, "Then I won't be able to leave for the rest of my life?" "Yes. Unless the creator and the others agree. However, I can take you to another place," the giant python said. "Where?" The middle-aged man was overjoyed. "You don't have to worry about that. Although I have agreed to help you, you have to show me the value of helping you," the giant python said. "Value?" The middle-aged man was stunned. What value could he have? If it was someone else, with his foundation, strength, and financial resources, he would indeed be very valuable. But in front of the guardian, these were nothing at all. The middle-aged man helplessly transmitted his voice to Mu Tianyang. "Help me? On what basis?" Mu Tianyang sneered. "We are your clansmen," the middle-aged man said angrily. "Clansmen? When I asked you to go to the river of corrosion with me, why didn't you treat me as your clansmen? Now that you are in trouble, you say that we are your clansmen. Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Mu Tianyang mocked mercilessly. The middle-aged man was furious. He looked at the giant python and said, "My lord, I know that my Tianyang empire is not strong enough, but I think there will be something I can help you with in the future." The giant python was silent. The middle-aged man looked at the giant python, feeling very nervous. The giant python suddenly said, "Perhaps in the future, there will be something I can use you for. All right, I promise to help you." "Thank you, my lord." The middle-aged man quickly knelt in the void and thanked it. Zhuge Mingyang looked at the middle-aged man and sneered. "I didn't expect the people of the Tianyang Empire to be so cowardly." Mu Tianyang's face darkened. He said angrily, "You can humiliate him, but you can't humiliate the Tianyang Empire." "So what if I humiliate the Tianyang Empire? I want to humiliate you. What can you do to me? Do you think you are still the Mu Tianyang from 10,000 years ago? Even I, Zhuge Mingyang, can destroy you now. What are you so arrogant for?" Zhuge Mingyang said with disdain. You? Mu Tianyang was furious. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Because the current you is no longer qualified to stand with me. Zhuge Mingyang raised the corner of his mouth with extreme contempt. Seeing that Mu Tianyang was about to go berserk, Mu Qing quickly sent a voice transmission. Master, please calm down. It won't be too late to settle the score with him when you have recovered to your peak state. Mu Tianyang took a deep breath and swallowed his anger. But in his heart it was extremely painful. First it was Qin Feiyang. Now it was Zhuge Mingyang. And they were all unscrupulously riding on his head and behaving atrociously. How could he, a god of war, be reduced to such a state? Angry, aggrieved, Zhuge Mingyang glanced at him with disdain, and looked at the giant python. There is something that I am puzzled about. When the Vanga League was captured by Qin Feiyang, why didn't you appear? I believe that the Vanga League's value is greater than the Tianyang Empire's. The Tianyang Empire naturally can't be compared to the Vanga League. But before that, I was always by the side of the big shot above. When I returned, the Vanga League had already been captured. The giant python said regretfully. What were you doing with him? Zhuge Mingyang was suspicious. Saving the fire dragon. The giant python said. Saving the fire dragon? What do you mean? Mu Tianyang was surprised. Qin Feiyang severely injured it. If it wasn't for the big shot above, it would have died. The giant python said. This, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. Chapter 1626. While they were talking, the python's lost tail had been repaired. Bastard! But suddenly, it roared. Zhuge Mingyang and the others were startled and looked at it suspiciously. The python waved its tail, and the group of people disappeared. The next moment, they landed in the sky above a mountain. The mountains were endless. The mountains were majestic and magnificent. The mountain stream was lush and green. A wide river, like a giant dragon, crossed the north and south. The river water flowed slowly and was very clear. At this moment, beside the river, on a grassland, a few big square stones were piled into a stone stove with a diameter of more than 10 meters. On top of it, there was a big iron pot. The iron pot was filled with water. On the side, a group of people were surrounding a giant tail, and they were extremely busy. Some of them were scraping the snake scales on the giant tail with their artifacts. Some of them grabbed the artifacts and chopped the giant tail into palm-sized pieces, washed them with the river water, and put them into the big iron pot. That's right. They were Qin Feiyang and the others. Qin Feiyang and Willow Tree didn't join in the fun. They stood aside and watched everyone busy with a smile. What are they doing? The middle-aged man looked at this scene in astonishment. Nonsense, obviously they are going to stew snake soup. Zhuge Mingyang rolled his eyes. Looking at the snake meat in the iron pot, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. They are really going to stew it. And they are doing it so blatantly? The middle-aged man was stunned and glanced at the python. At this moment, the python was so angry that its body was trembling and its eyes were spitting fire. This guy really dares to do it. Mu Tianyang was speechless. To be honest, I also want to try it. Mu Qing muttered and only swallowed her saliva. The python suddenly glanced at Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Qing and said angrily, What are you doing? Nothing. The two shook their heads quickly. The python said gloomily, Then why do I hear the sound of saliva swallowing? Is there? Both of them had innocent looks on their faces. Zhuge Mingyang said, We are angry. Yes. These bastards actually dared to brazenly stew your meat. This is simply unforgivable. Mu Qing also roared with indignation. Hey, what are you all standing there for? We're all old friends, come down and try it together. Snake stew made from divine meat is a delicacy that is hard to come by in 100,000 years. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the giant python, Zhuge Mingyang, and the others as he grinned. The giant python's aura was not concealed at all. Therefore, as soon as the giant python appeared, everyone noticed it. However, they didn't pay any attention to it and continued to do their own things, angering this beast to death. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the giant python was furious. But suddenly, Another gulping sound came from the side. The giant python flew into a rage out of humiliation, glaring at Zhuge Mingyang. Zhuge Mingyang quickly waved his hand and pointed at Mu Qing, saying, "It's not me, it's him." "Don't slander me, it's obviously you," Mu Qing said angrily. "How can I possibly want to eat the guardian's meat? Isn't that disrespectful? Look at you, you're almost drooling, and you still say it's not you. To think that you're a man, you dare to do it but don't dare to admit it." Zhuge Mingyang despised him. Growl. However, before his voice died away, Zhuge Mingyang's stomach suddenly made a sound. Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. Mu Qing sneered and looked at the giant python, saying, "My lord, did you see that? It's him." The giant python stared at Zhuge Mingyang angrily. Zhuge Mingyang smiled awkwardly. It was embarrassing to be betrayed by his stomach. Qin Feiyang smiled playfully and asked, "Are you sure you don't want to come down and have a taste? It's a rare delicacy, you won't have it in the future if you miss it." The middle-aged man Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing's face darkened. "Can you stop tempting us? Can't you see that the main culprit is right next to us?" "Taste? I definitely have to taste it." Zhuge Mingyang suddenly grinned and flew toward Qin Feiyang. "What's going on?" On the contrary, Qin Feiyang was stunned. Willow Tree and the others also looked at each other. Is there something wrong with this person's brain? Can't he see that the giant python is about to go berserk? Mu Tianyang and the other two were also shocked. By the way, Zhuge Mingyang suddenly stopped and looked up at the giant python and Mu Tianyang, saying, "You don't have to wait for me, go first." After that, he didn't care about the giant python's ugly expression and landed beside Qin Feiyang without looking back. "Are you okay?" Qin Feiyang looked at Zhuge Mingyang in shock. Zhuge Mingyang frowned and said, "You didn't ask me to come down, right? Why? Are you going back on your words now?" No. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand and said, "I mean, aren't you afraid of offending the guardian?" "I have nothing to lose, so why should I be afraid?" Zhuge Mingyang grinned and walked to the iron pot, sniffing it and said, "Although it hasn't started cooking yet, I seem to smell the meat." Hearing this, Ning Mingi, the palace master of Fengtian Palace, and the others couldn't help but twitch their faces. Is there really nothing wrong with this person's brain? The giant python couldn't bear it anymore and roared in anger. "Go to hell, all of you!" A force of rules suddenly fell from the sky and blasted toward the group. "Protect the meat!" Zhuge Mingyang's face changed and quickly roared. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. The giant python angrily attacked. This person's first thought was not to save his life, but to protect the meat? What was he trying to do? However, doubts were doubts. The meat really had to be protected, otherwise the snake's soup would be ruined. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and brought everyone, including the snake meat and the big pot, into the castle. In an instant, only Zhuge Mingyang was left at the scene. "And me? How could you leave me behind?" Zhuge Mingyang said angrily. The giant python stared at Zhuge Mingyang and laughed sinisterly. "You're a traitor. Your death is not to be regretted." The force of rules carried a destructive aura and rushed toward Zhuge Mingyang. It's over. I shouldn't have been greedy." "Qin Feiyang, I hate you. You actually tempted me like this." Zhuge Mingyang was furious. Then, he disappeared. Without the slightest sign. There was no trace of him, as if he had disappeared from the world. Mu Tianyang and the other two widened their eyes as they scanned the place where Zhuge Mingyang had disappeared. Their faces were filled with shock and doubt. Boom! The force of rules descended, accompanied by a deafening sound. Tens of thousands of miles were instantly razed to the ground. Not a single blade of grass was left. The giant python scanned the broken ground and coldly snorted. "I'll let you be arrogant first." With that, he disappeared with Mu Tianyang and the other two. Not long after, Qin Feiyang, Willow Tree, Ning Mingi, and the palace master of Fengtian Palace appeared. They looked up at the sky, then looked at the place where Zhuge Mingyang disappeared, their eyes full of surprise. Qin Feiyang said, "Use your divine sense to search." Swish! Before he finished, Zhuge Mingyang appeared out of thin air and said, "You don't need to look, I'll come out myself." "You also have a spatial divine object?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Zhuge Mingyang was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Did I say that I don't have one before? Did you have one before?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Zhuge Mingyang said, "Then you didn't ask before." Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be angry. He really didn't know that Zhuge Mingyang had a spatial divine object. In the past, he also thought that Zhuge Mingyang couldn't have a spatial divine object. But now, how could he not be surprised that a spatial divine object suddenly appeared? After Qin Feiyang calmed down, he frowned and said, "Is this the reason why you dare to be so presumptuous in front of the giant python? Isn't that obvious?" Zhuge Mingyang smiled. Qin Feiyang looked deeply at Zhuge Mingyang, then glanced at the broken ground, looked at the palace master of Fengtian Palace and Ning Mingyi, and said, "Let's change places. Let me think." Ning Mingyi lowered his head and pondered for a while, then said, "Let's just go to our Aeon city." "You mean the city outside the Soul-Sealing Valley?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Yes." Ning Mingyi nodded. "Okay," Qin Feiyang said. Willow Tree immediately opened the portal. They walked in one after another. Zhuge Mingyang's eyes flashed, and he also followed with a thick face. The city didn't change at all. When they arrived above the city, Ning Mingyi directly landed on a square in the center of the city. The square was large and square, enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. Qin Feiyang also landed in the center of the square, glanced around, and took everyone out of the castle, including the divine meat and the big iron pot, and said with a smile, "Continue." The group of people began to get busy again. Zhuge Mingyang looked around. Since he had nothing to do, he also went to help. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, walked to a corner of the square, took out a tea table and 4 wooden chairs, and placed them on the ground. Qin Feiyang sat on one of the wooden chairs, took out the beauty of Qinghai, and began to make tea. "This is..." Ning Mingyi looked at the beauty of Qinghai, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He asked, "Young master, is this a tea set made of Qinghai nephrite?" Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, "Do you also like to drink tea?" "Yes, of course I do." Ning Mingyi nodded repeatedly. Willow Tree next to him glanced at the beauty of Qinghai suspiciously and asked, "What's different about this tea set made of Qinghai nephrite?" "As soon as I heard your words, I knew you were an outsider. This tea set made of Qinghai nephrite can completely remove the impurities in the tea leaves, making the tea more fragrant and stronger. Moreover, even the most ordinary tea leaves can be brewed with this Qinghai nephrite tea set. It can be brewed into the best tea," Ning Mingyi said. "I see." Willow Tree suddenly understood. Qin Feiyang smiled, looked up at the 3 of them, and said suspiciously, "Why are you all standing there? Sit down." "This..." Ning Mingyi and Willow Tree looked at each other, looking a little scared. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "You don't have to be so reserved with me. Just get along with each other like friends. Then we'll accept deferentially." Ning Mingyi and the other 2 smiled and sat down one after another. Soon, the rich tea fragrance drifted out. There was also a wisp of medicinal herbs in the tea fragrance. Ning Mingyi sniffed and said in surprise, "Why does this tea have the smell of medicinal herbs? And it doesn't smell like an ordinary medicinal herb. This was given to me by an old senior. These tea leaves were put in the medicine field by him and carefully cultivated. There's not much of it produced in a year. It's very precious. Try it." Qin Feiyang poured a cup and handed it to Ning Mingyi. Ning Mingyi took the teacup and tasted it carefully. His eyes suddenly lit up and he nodded. "Good tea. I've lived for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen such special tea leaves." "Is it that exaggerated?" The palace master of Fengtian Palace glanced at him suspiciously, poured a cup and tasted it. His eyes lit up immediately and he praised, "It's indeed the best of the best." Willow Tree also tasted it and wondered, "Why do I feel that it's no different from other tea leaves?" "You're a typical amateur." Ning Mingyi shook his head, suddenly glanced at Zhuge Mingyang not far away, and whispered, "Young master, this Zhuge Mingyang is not simple, especially his space divine item." "What do you mean?" Chapter 1627. Previously, when the rule force fell, this person hid in the space divine item, but he was unharmed. What does this mean? It means that his space divine item can withstand the bombardment of the rule force. Ning Mingi said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Willow Tree and Palace Master Fengtian next to him were shocked. Before Ning Mingi spoke, they really didn't think about this problem. Willow Tree said in surprise, the castle can also withstand the bombardment of the rule force. Could it be that his space divine item is on the same level as the castle? Qin Feiyang drank tea with a faint smile on his face. He wasn't surprised by Ning Mingi's words. How can you still smile? If Zhuge Mingyang's space divine item is on the same level as the castle, then it's not necessarily a good thing for us. Willow Tree frowned. Palace Master Fengtian and Ning Mingi also nodded, agreeing with Willow Tree's words. Don't worry. Although I don't know what level his space divine item is, but I'm sure it's not comparable to the castle at all, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. So confident? The three of them were surprised. There's something you don't know. The power that the castle is displaying now is not all, Qin Feiyang said. Because the castle still had the seal. When the seal was removed, it would undoubtedly be even more powerful. Not all. The three of them were shocked. Qin Feiyang asked, I don't know if you have noticed a problem? What problem? The three of them were suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, not long ago, your 110 pseudo-gods joined forces to revive Chang Shui, but it didn't fully recover. Yes. Not to mention ordinary divine artifacts, even your Phoenix God Saber and Azure Light Sword can be fully recovered in an instant with the 110 pseudo-gods joining forces. Ning Mingi looked at Palace Master Fengtian and said. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace frowned. He looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, has Chang Shui really not fully recovered? I'm sure of that. No. Willow Tree shook his head. How so? Palace Lord Fengtian asked. Because Chang Shui possesses the power of law. If it fully recovers, the power of law will appear. However, the power of the laws did not appear before. Willow Tree said. The power of laws. Ning Mingi and Wang Chong looked at each other, their faces full of shock. Chang Shui was actually a divine artifact with the power of law? If this was true, then this Chang Shui had already surpassed the category of a divine artifact. Ning Mingi asked, does the ancient castle have the power of laws? Willow Tree nodded. Ning Mingi and the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder these two divine artifacts were so heaven-defying. It turned out that they both had the power of laws. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, so no matter how powerful Zhuge Mingyang's spatial divine artifact is, it definitely can't compare to the ancient castle in Chang Shui. Father. At this time, a purple-clothed youth ran over. It was Li Chang. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said, hurry up and greet Uncle Qin. Uncle Qin? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Ning Mingi and Willow Tree looked at each other. Li Chang himself was also stunned. Qin Feiyang came back to his senses, looked at the Palace Master of Fengtian Palace and said, are you talking about me? That's right. You and I address each other as equals. Li Chang is my son, so naturally, I have to call you uncle. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace nodded. Qin Feiyang's face twitched, and he hurriedly said, don't. Brother Qin, do you dislike children? The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said. No. In terms of age, I'm definitely younger than Li Chang. If you ask him to call me uncle, it will sound so awkward. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. No. Age doesn't mean anything, but seniority must not be messed up. Chang'er, hurry up. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace shouted. Li Chang looked at Qin Feiyang, his face turning green and red, but he couldn't say anything. The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace said angrily. Do you need me to say it again? Li Chang's gaze trembled, and he hurriedly bowed and said, Li Chang greets Uncle Qin. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and waved his hand. No need to be so polite. For no reason, he actually had a nephew? And it was a nephew who was older than him? How funny was this? The Palace Master of Fengtian Palace looked at Qin Feiyang without blushing and said with a smile. Brother Qin, since you have recognized my son as your nephew, shouldn't there be a greeting gift? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Ning Mingi said. Li Yun, so this is your purpose. You're very scheming. The palace master of Fengtian Palace said. Isn't it natural for an uncle to give his nephew a greeting gift? How can this be called scheming? Shameless. Ning Mingi looked down on him. Cough cough. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly and said with a fake smile. It seems that no one has a rule that I have to give a greeting gift when I recognize a nephew. The palace master of Fengtian Palace's expression was a little ugly. He thought that Qin Feiyang would more or less give him some face. But he didn't expect him to reject him like this. Li Chang said unhappily, Father, can you stop fooling around? It's already embarrassing enough to call him uncle, and you're still licking your face to ask for a greeting gift. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, I do. Being reprimanded mercilessly by his own son in front of everyone, Li Yun felt even more embarrassed, and his expression was extremely awkward. He said impatiently, What are you here for? Tell me quickly. Li Chang said, Give me your alchemy fire. Alchemy fire? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That was right. In the past, Willow Tree said that Fengtian Palace and the Vanga League both had grade 8 alchemy fires. Li Yun frowned and said, What do you need alchemy fire for? To stew snake soup, of course. Can ordinary firewood cook the meat of a god? Li Chang was depressed. Why did this old man's IQ become lower and lower after meeting Qin Feiyang? Li Yun nodded in realization. With a thought, a cluster of alchemy fire flew out from between his brows and flew to Li Chang. Li Chang grabbed the alchemy fire and prepared to leave. Qin Feiyang suddenly said, Wait. Li Chang turned to look at him and asked suspiciously, Uncle Qin, do you have any other orders? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. As soon as he heard the term Uncle Qin, goosebumps appeared all over his body. He said, Let me see that alchemy fire. Oh no. This guy, don't tell me he's thinking about my alchemy fire? Li Yun's heart skipped a beat. Li Chang looked at Li Yun. Li Yun sighed helplessly and nodded to Li Chang. Then, Li Chang respectfully handed the alchemy fire to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed the alchemy fire and sized it up. This alchemy fire was as big as a fist. The flames gushed out and emitted a heart-palpitating aura. This aura was comparable to a war emperor. Obviously, this was a cluster of grade 8 alchemy fire. Li Yun looked at Qin Feiyang and felt extremely nervous. After a long while, Qin Feiyang finally returned the alchemy fire to Li Chang. This made Li Yuan a little surprised. He thought that Qin Feiyang wanted to take it for himself, and was even prepared to give it away. But he didn't expect that what he expected didn't happen. After Li Chang left, Qin Feiyang looked at Willow Tree and said, Come closer. Willow Tree put its ear close. Qin Feiyang muttered a few words. Okay. Willow Tree nodded, immediately got up, opened a portal, and walked in without looking back. What is Willow Tree doing? Li Yun asked suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Ning Mingi. You should also have alchemy fire. Ning Mingi hesitated for a moment and nodded. I do have it. I wonder why young master asked this. Qin Feiyang said. What grade? Grade 8. Ning Mingi said. Give it to me. Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand. Ning Mingi's expression froze. But in the end he still handed over the alchemy fire. This alchemy fire, which he placed in his sea of consciousness, was the size of a fist and exuded an aura comparable to that of a combat emperor. Erase the blood contract. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Young master, I've given you everything I have. Now only this alchemy fire is left. Can't you leave some for me? Ning Mingi suddenly became anxious. Qin Feiyang said, This alchemy fire is more valuable in my hands. Grade 8 alchemy fire, no matter who has it, is valuable. Ning Mingi said aggrievedly. Qin Feiyang's face darkened as he said, Do you remember what I said? You have to perform well to have a chance to get the Divine Phoenix saber back. Ning Mingi was about to cry. He helplessly erased the blood contract. Li Yun asked curiously, Brother Qin, are you also an alchemist? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Ning Mingi and Li Yun looked at each other in surprise. Li Yun asked again, What's the level of your spiritual power? Level 45. Qin Feiyang looked down at the alchemy fire in his hand and answered without thinking. Level 45. Not bad. Both of them nodded. Level 45 spiritual power is only called not bad. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked up at the two of them in shock. Was there someone in the Vanga League in Fengtian Palace who had a higher spiritual power than him? Wait. Level 45. Ning Mingyi and Li Yun also reacted and looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Did they hear wrongly? It was actually level 45 spiritual power? Looking at the sudden change in their expressions, Qin Feiyang understood. He shook his head and smiled. He put away the alchemy fire, picked up the teacup, and continued to drink tea. Young master, are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Ning Mingyi asked. No. I tested it the last time at the main tower. Qin Feiyang said. Both of their breathing became rapid. Li Yun quickly took out a spirit stone and said, Can you test it again? Is this necessary? Qin Feiyang was doubtful. Yes. Both of them nodded at the same time. All right, I'll satisfy your curiosity. Qin Feiyang smiled, grabbed the spirit stone and entered a state of meditation. Buzz. Very soon, the spirit stone began to vibrate. Not far away. When the people who were busy saw this scene, they all looked over curiously. But gradually, everyone's curiosity was replaced by shock, including Zhuge Mingyang. Ning Yiyang, Ning Yifeng, Zhao Shiming and Li Chang's expressions were even more exaggerated. Level 30. Level 40. Level 45. It was actually level 45 spiritual power. Goodness. Was this a dream? This was the first time in their lives that they saw someone with such a high spiritual power. Ning Mingyi and Li Yun were also dumbstruck. It turned out to be true. It was already enviable that his cultivation talent was so amazing. Even the heavenly path of alchemy was so terrifying. Chapter 1628. The square fell into a dead silence. Everyone was deeply shocked by Qin Feiyang's mental strength. Level 45. It seemed that this could only be described with the word, abnormal. Swish. Suddenly, Willow Tree appeared out of thin air, walked quickly to Qin Feiyang's side, and whispered a few words. What? Qin Feiyang suddenly got up, and the mental stone in his hand was crushed with a crack. Huh. Everyone was surprised. What made Qin Feiyang lose his composure? Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, Have you asked how they disappeared? Willow Tree said, I asked the nearby beasts. They said that it was a giant python. It should be the guardian's doing. This bastard, there's no end to it. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Brother Qin, what are you talking about? What beast? Li Yun asked anxiously. Qin Feiyang said, Just now, I asked Willow Tree to go to the Nether Hall, but the people of the Nether Hall have all been transferred by the giant python. All transferred? What does this giant python want to do? Li Yun frowned. Who knows? Qin Feiyang sneered, rolled his eyes, and looked at Li Yun with a smile. Let's discuss something. What is it? Li Yun looked at him warily. I won't take it by force. Why are you guarding against me? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said with a smile. I also need a cluster of 8th grade pillfire. Li Yun was stunned and smiled bitterly. Sure enough, he couldn't escape the fate of being exploited. Okay. It's just a cluster of pillfire. I'll give it to you. Chang or give me the pillfire. Li Yun said loudly. He was straightforward and did not beat around the bush. Qin Feiyang also liked this person more and more. Li Chang ran over with his alchemic flame. Li Yun looked at the pillfire, and could not help but feel her heart ache. She said helplessly, Give the pillfire to your Uncle Qin. For him. Then what do we use? Li Chang frowned. Li Yun waved her hand and said, We still have rank 6 and rank 7 alchemy fires. It's not a problem. What a bandit. Li Chang snorted inwardly, but he didn't dare to show any disrespect on the surface. He handed the alchemy flame to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed it in his hand. Li Yun also immediately erased the blood contract inside. Ning Mingyi asked suspiciously, Young master, why do you need 2 8th grade pillfires? You'll know soon enough. Qin Feiyang smiled. Whoosh. Beside him, 2 more alchemy fires appeared. One of them was the Nether Devil Flame. The other flame belonged to the main pagoda. Li Yun looked at the Nether Devil Flame and frowned. Don't you already have an 8th grade alchemy fire? Why do you still want ours? Just watch quietly. Qin Feiyang smiled, put away the pampered Qing Hai on the table in front of him, and then took out Ning Mingyi's alchemy fire. Looking at the 3 8th grade alchemy fires, the Nether Devil Flame immediately pounced on them, as if it had seen 3 delicious cakes. Everyone was surprised. What was going on? What happened next shocked everyone once again. The Nether Devil Flame swallowed the 3 8th grade alchemy fires in front of them. Boom. Following that, the Nether Devil Flame rushed out a terrifying aura. It covered all directions, and the whole city instantly turned into a big furnace. The houses, streets, and squares were all melting. Qin Feiyang's eyes also trembled, and he got up and looked at the Nether Devil Flame in excitement, because the aura emitted by the Nether Devil Flame at this moment was divine power. In other words, the Nether Devil Flame had successfully been promoted to the 9th grade. According to the corresponding level, the 9th grade was already comparable to the existence of the false god. Father, save me quickly! Li Chang suddenly screamed. The clothes on his body suddenly caught fire, his hair was also on fire, his skin was also severely burned, and blood flowed out of his body. He was only a 6-star war emperor, so he naturally couldn't withstand this kind of high temperature. Ning Yifeng and Zhao Ximing were in the same situation as him. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang hurriedly controlled the Nether Devil Flame to reduce the temperature. At this time, the temperature here slowly cooled down. Li Chang and the other 2 also quickly took out healing pills and stuffed them into their mouths. Looking at the Nether Devil Flame, their faces were full of fear. Seeing that the 3 of them were out of danger, Li Yuan and the others also heaved a sigh of relief. Subsequently, everyone looked at the Nether Devil Flame in unison, their eyes full of surprise. Qin Feiyang looked at Ning Mingyi and said with a smile, I told you, the alchemy fire will be more valuable in my hands. Ning Mingyi said, What the hell is going on? Qin Feiyang stretched out his arm and spread out his 5 fingers. The Nether Devil Flame landed on his palm and laughed. It's called the Nether Devil Flame. It can devour other alchemy fires and increase its grade. What? There's actually such an alchemy fire. Everyone was shocked. Qin Feiyang said, Now it has already been raised to the 9th grade. I should be able to refine a pill with 8 pill veins. 8 pill veins. Once again, the crowd was deeply shaken. But Qin Feiyang suddenly frowned again. But what? Everyone looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang thought. The Nether Devil Flame has already transformed into a divine fire. Can my current pill furnaces withstand its burning? Ning Mingyi hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and said, This is really hard to say. I'll give it a try. Qin Feiyang immediately entered the castle and walked to the front of the pill furnace. Fatso and the others had already come out from Ling Yunfei's spatial divine object. At this moment, they were all looking at Qin Feiyang, their eyes filled with anticipation. Are you sure you want to try? This might destroy a pill furnace. Dan Wangkai was originally preparing to refine pills, but seeing Qin Feiyang's arrival, he immediately retreated to the side and asked, If it's destroyed, then so be it. Qin Feiyang said, reviving the Nether Devil Flame. In the end, in less than 3 breaths of time, the pill furnace in front of him melted. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly, looked at Dan Wangkai and said, Looks like I have to find a 9th grade pill furnace. Dan Wangkai said, A 9th grade pill furnace is already considered half a divine artifact. It's not that easy to find. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and muttered to himself. Fatty asked, Boss, does this Nether demonic flame need to be upgraded by another grade before it can be considered a true divine fire? But a 9th grade pill fire is not easy to find. Not to mention 3 clusters of 9th grade pill fire. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed, leaving the castle alone. How is it? Willow Tree and the others looked at him. Qin Feiyang shook his head, looked at Ning Mingyi and Li Yun, and said, Do you have a 9th grade pill fire and a 9th grade pill furnace? The 2 shook their heads. Qin Feiyang said, Then do you know where it might be? It's hard to say. It might be in the miracle, but it depends on whether you can find it. Li Yin said. Forget it, we'll talk about it later. Qin Feiyong smiled, looked at the snake meat in the pot, and said, I can't help but want to taste it first. He stretched out his big hand and grabbed in the air. A piece of snake meat flew out of the big pot and floated in front of him. Seeing this, Zhao Tailai immediately propped up a divine power barrier to protect Li Chang and the other two. Don't be nervous. I can control the temperature of the nether devil flame as I wish, and it won't hurt them anymore. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly, took out the nether devil flame, placed it under the snake meat, and quickly recovered. However, the giant python's divine meat was beyond imagination. After a full 100 breaths, there was no oil flowing. After all, it's a war god level existence. Although the nether devil flame has been upgraded to the 9th grade, it's still not a real divine fire. How can it be cooked so easily? Li Yin said. Qin Feiyong nodded. Time passed little by little. Half an hour later, the snake meat finally began to flow. Wisps of meat fragrance wafted out, making people salivate. Another half an hour later, the snake meat was finally cooked. The surface was golden yellow. The meat fragrance assailed the nostrils, making the people present couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Who has seasoning? Seeing that it was almost done, Qin Feiyong looked up at everyone and asked with a smile. Me. Zhuge Mingyang sneakily came up and took out a dozen jars, which were full of all kinds of seasonings. After Zhuge Mingyang sprinkled these seasonings one by one, an even more intoxicating fragrance suddenly wafted out. Qin Feiyong also couldn't help but swallow his saliva. But just as he took out the chang shui and was about to cut a piece to taste, Zhuge Mingyang grabbed the snake meat and quickly retreated. Qin Feiyong was stunned. His face immediately darkened and said angrily, If you want to eat, don't you know how to roast it yourself? There's ready-made food. Why would I roast it myself? Is there something wrong with my brain? Tisk tsk. The taste of this divine meat is really good. Zhuge Mingyang rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyong, then sat on the ground without caring about his image, and started to chew on it with a face full of enjoyment. Qin Feiyong's veins were popping. He had roasted this piece of snake meat for an entire hour, but he didn't even get to taste it. It was too much. Li Yin laughed. Anyway, there's still so much. Let's continue roasting. Qin Feiyong glared at Zhuge Mingyang, then looked at Li Chang and said, Go and get more. Is the snake soup still stewing? Li Chang asked. Of course. Qin Feiyong said. As a result, Li Chang took almost half of the snake meat and roasted it for Qin Feiyong. The other half was stewed directly. The divine meat contained an extremely terrifying energy. It was beneficial for anyone below the war god level. False god could strengthen the body. The war emperor, as well as those below the war emperor, could not only strengthen the body, but could also increase their cultivation. For example, after Li Chang, Zhao Ximing, and Ning Yifeng finished eating the snake meat, the huge amount of energy was about to burst their bodies. When Qin Feiyong saw this scene, he hurriedly said, The energy contained in the deity's flesh is even greater than I imagined. Is there anyone who has the power of a false god similar to the power of ice? Help them cool down and disperse the energy. I'll do it. Li Yun's wife took a step forward, rolled up the three of them, and soared into the sky. Then, with a wave of her hand, waves of false god power appeared, and the space around Li Chang and the other two immediately condensed into pieces of ice, trapping the three of them. Zhao Tailai, Ning Mingyi, and Li Yin were all extremely nervous. Finally, the three of them received huge benefits, and their cultivation soared by 4 small realms, directly stepping into the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. This, Qin Feiyong was dumbstruck. In the past, he had also eaten divine meat. It was the Holy Lion. But at that time, he had only broken through from the 6-star War Saint to the peak of the 7-star War Emperor realm, and it had not even allowed him to break through 2 small realms. One had to know. At that time, he was still in the War Sage realm. But now, Li Chang and the other two were all War Emperor, but they could still soar by 4 small realms? Obviously, the giant python was many times stronger than the Holy Lion. Chapter 1629. Father, Mother. Have we really reached the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm? The three of them broke out of the ice. Their auras surged, but their faces were filled with disbelief. They could not believe that one's cultivation could make such a huge breakthrough. It's true. Li Yin and his wife, Ning Mingyi and Zhao Tailai nodded. The three of them were overjoyed. They had broken through from the 6-star combat emperor realm to the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. This was like a dream. So what if you're at the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm? Killing you is just a matter of moving my fingers. A disdainful voice suddenly sounded. Everyone raised their eyebrows and turned to look at Zhuge Mingyang. They saw him eating the barbecued meat with his head lowered, and his face was filled with disdain. Zhao Shiming snorted. You're a fake god and we're just combat emperors. Of course you have the right to say that. Even your parents are trash in front of me, let alone you. Zhuge Mingyang said indifferently. The faces of Zhao Tailai and the others were instantly filled with rage. You're not convinced? Zhuge Mingyang smirked and looked up at them. He said disdainfully. Come at me together. If you can even hurt a strand of my hair, you'll win. Arrogant. Presumptuous. The few of them were furious. I'm so arrogant. What can you do to me? Zhuge Mingyang's eyes were filled with provocation. Li Chang said angrily. If you have the ability, suppress your cultivation to the same level as mine and challenge me one-on-one. Shut up. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said. Li Chang said unhappily. Uncle Qin, are you going to let him be so presumptuous? Can you not call me uncle? Qin Feiyang looked at Li Chang helplessly and said. He has the right to be presumptuous. Because even if he suppresses his cultivation to the 8 or 7-star combat emperor realm, you'll still be abused. Li Chang was surprised. Is he that strong? Brother Qin is still quite observant. Zhuge Mingyang smiled mockingly. He then lowered his head and chewed on the barbecued meat in his hand. Li Chang glanced at Zhuge Mingyang with a cold glint in his eyes. The woman also glanced at Zhuge Mingyang. She looked at Li Chang and said, Chang, why aren't you thanking your uncle Qin? If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have been able to obtain such a great fortune. Li Chang quickly flew in front of Qin Feiyang and cupped his hands. Thank you, Uncle Qin. Why is it getting smoother and smoother? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Cough cough. Shi Meng Yifeng come down as well. Thank the young master properly. Ning Mingyi said. Don't. I'm really worried that I'll have another nephew and niece later. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. There was still a trace of gratitude in Zhao Shiming's heart, but when she heard Qin Feiyang's words, it suddenly disappeared. She angrily said, Who wants to be your niece? Don't take advantage of us. Zhao Tailai's expression changed and shouted. Shi Meng, don't be rude, don't forget your current identity. You are the young master's subordinate. Zhao Shiming's eyes immediately turned red from being wronged. Zhao Tailai ignored her and hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang pleading. Young master, please calm down, this subordinate will definitely discipline her in the future. I'm not angry. What are you nervous about? Qin Feiyang said. Zhao Tailai heaved a sigh of relief. All right, let's continue with the snake soup. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and glanced at the barbecue in front of him. There was also some anticipation in his eyes. Then he took out the chang shui, cut it into small pieces, and put it into his mouth. A strong meat fragrance immediately engulfed his entire body. Moreover, he could clearly feel that the energy in the divine flesh was quickly surging to his limbs and bones. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang. Li Chang and the other two had broken through 4 small realms in a row. Qin Feiyang would definitely be able to do it too. As pieces of barbecued meat were continuously put into his mouth, the energy became more and more terrifying. It was like a torrent of beasts, rampaging through his body. In the end, he ate a large piece of divine flesh. The energy could no longer be controlled and roared out of his body. He immediately rose into the air, stood in the void, closed his eyes, and refined the energy. Li Yun shouted. Madam, quickly. The woman waved her hand, and wind and frost suddenly appeared in the void. Qin Feiyang's surroundings quickly formed pieces of ice. Time passed breath by breath. Boom. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's aura soared, directly breaking through the shackles and charging to the 7-star combat emperor. But it did not stop. It was still soaring. More than 10 breaths later, his cultivation had once again broken through to the 8-star combat emperor. However, just after breaking through to the 8-star combat emperor, his soaring aura came to an abrupt stop. That's it. Everyone was stunned. This was too strange. Li Chang and the other two had broken through 4 small realms. Why did Qin Feiyang only break through 2 small realms? With a crack, the ice shattered. Qin Feiyang shook off the ice fragments on his body, his face full of joy. Why are you so happy that you broke through 2 realms less than Li Chang and the other 2? Someone was puzzled. Of course I'm happy. Because I didn't expect to have a breakthrough in the first place. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Didn't expect? What do you mean? Everyone was puzzled. The divine flesh is like some elixirs. The effect is very good the first time you eat it. The second and third time, the effect will gradually weaken. And I have eaten divine flesh before. Qin Feiyang landed on the square and said with a smile. What? You have eaten divine flesh before? Everyone was dumbfounded. So, to be able to break through 2 small realms is already a surprise for me. Of course I'm happy. Qin Feiyang's face sank when he said this. He said, this shows that the giant python's strength is much more terrifying than we thought. Everyone's heart sank when they heard this. It had eaten divine meat before, yet it still had such a good effect. This was enough to show that the giant python's strength was not ordinary. Why are you so nervous? With Chang Shui around, no matter how strong it is, it can't threaten us. Li Yin suddenly said with a smile. That's true. Everyone nodded. Qin Feiyang said, we can't rely too much on Chang Shui. Brother Qin, our situation is different from yours. You can continue to cultivate and break through to the war god realm, and surpass the giant python. But we can't leave the black tortoise realm. The false god realm is already the peak. So we can only rely on external objects. Li Yin sighed. Yes. The others from the palace of Fengtian nodded. They didn't know that Qin Feiyang had already mastered the method to break the demon mark. If they knew, they definitely wouldn't think so. Because once the demon mark was removed and they left the black tortoise realm, the power of laws would lose its effect. Their cultivations would also break through. Willow Tree glanced at the people from the palace of Fengtian and said, Young master, Li Yin is a good person. Are you really not going to help them? Qin Feiyang said. It depends on the situation. If there are enough false god realm divine beasts in the black tortoise realm, it's not impossible to help them. Willow Tree nodded. Qin Feiyang gathered his thoughts. He waved his hand. Fatso and the others, as well as the white-eyed wolf and the other beasts, appeared one after another. As soon as these guys appeared, except for women like Lu Hong and Luo Qingzhu, they all pounced crazily on the barbecue like bandits. They were in the castle and could clearly hear everything outside, so they had been waiting impatiently for a long time. Lu Zheng gripped a piece of barbecue tightly and glared at the aggressive white-eyed wolf. He roared, Wolf cub, don't snatch it from me, okay? Sorry, I didn't notice you. The white-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly. I'm standing here alone. How could you not notice me? Do you think I'm stupid? Lu Zheng snorted coldly, turned around and ran to Lu Hong's side. He smiled and said, Hong, or this group of bandits is too scary. Try it quickly. What about us? Luo Qingzhu, the ghost queen, and the miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion stood at the side and stared straight at Lu Zheng. Go get it yourself. Lu Zheng waved his hand and didn't even look at the girls. He only had eyes for Lu Hong. Lu Zheng, you're going too far. We're all women like Lu Hong. How can you treat us differently? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said unhappily. Lu Zheng glanced at the girls and said something that angered them to death. Are you very familiar with me? Are you looking for a beating? The miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion rebuked angrily. If you want to hit me, I won't give you a chance. In this world, only Hong has the qualifications to hit me. Lu Zheng grinned and said, looking like a rascal. Bah. Who wants to hit you? Not like a man. The girls all revealed looks of disdain. Lu Hong, who was at the side, was already blushing. Roar. Not long after. Wolf King Fatso, and the others began to wail like ghosts and howl like wolves. One by one, they rushed into the sky. Their faces were flushed red, like red-hot soldering iron. All the pores on their bodies were emitting air, and boundless energy crazily tore at their bodies. Ling Yunfei called Li Jian Scorpion King, and the others out. Although they have all reached the peak realm, and the divine meat is of no help to their cultivation, it can still temper their bodies. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Okay." Ling Yunfei, who was gnawing on the divine meat, responded vaguely. With a wave of his hand, Li Jian Scorpion King, and the other beasts suddenly appeared out of thin air. What's going on? Looking at the scene in front of them, Li Jian and the other beasts looked at each other. They had been in Ling Yunfei's spatial divine item, concentrating on comprehending the profound meaning of becoming a god. So they didn't care about what was going on outside. There were even many things that they didn't know. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Divine meat, go and have a taste." Divine meat? The eyes of Scorpion King and the other beasts lit up. Li Jian's face was filled with shock. How could there be divine meat? He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said in surprise, "Young master, you killed a divine beast?" "No. It's just a tail. The guardian of miracles' tail," Qin Feiyang said. "I see." Li Jian nodded. Of course he knew about the guardian of miracle. When Qin Feiyang fought with Mu Tianyang last time, and the guardian of miracle appeared, he hadn't officially gone into seclusion yet. Then this divine meat really can't be missed. Li Jian smiled and went forward to grab a piece of barbecued meat. He returned to Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Being able to eat a piece of the guardian of miracles' divine meat will finally give me something to show off to my descendants in the future." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Li Jian sighed again and said, "If only Zhou hadn't died." Qin Feiyang's smile also disappeared. He patted Li Jian's shoulder and said, "I believe that you being alive is the best comfort for him." Chapter 1630. Rumble. High up in the sky, everyone's cultivation level soared in an instant. But like Qin Feiyang, they only soared by 2 small realms. However, Lu Zheng soared by 4 small realms in a row. This meant that he had never eaten divine meat before. He had already cultivated to the 4-star War Emperor level, so now his cultivation level directly caught up with Qin Feiyang. Everyone's strength had increased by a lot, which was naturally a joyous thing. Moreover, everyone had been cultivating in seclusion, and hadn't relaxed for a long time. So they took this opportunity to indulge themselves. For the whole night, everyone was partying. They didn't know how many jars of wine they had drunk. But Qin Feiyang didn't touch a single drop of wine. Firstly, he didn't like to drink. Secondly, he had to guard against the Guardian's sneak attack. But after an entire night, the Guardian didn't appear, as if he had already given up on taking revenge on Qin Feiyang. Early the next morning, the party ended. Ling Yunfei and the others entered the castle one after another, and began to cultivate. Li Chang and the other 2 broke through to the peak realm. As their parents, Li Yin and the others also began to explain to them the profound meaning of becoming gods. Qin Feiyang listened for a while. Their explanations were similar to what Elder Qin and Second Grandpa said. To him, it didn't have much meaning. Then, he turned and walked to the cauldron. Young Master Qin, the second elder of Fengtian Palace, was reviving a cluster of 7th-grade pill fire. The bottom of the cauldron was already red, and the water in the cauldron had long been boiling. Seeing Qin Feiyang coming over, the second elder raised his head and smiled. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "Are you also an alchemist?" "Yes. But I only have a 15-level mental strength. I can't compare to young Master Qin." The second elder said in shame. A 15-level mental strength is already very rare. Qin Feiyang laughed. The second elder shook his head and said, 45 15-level difference is a whole 30 levels. Young Master Qin, I really can't figure out how a person can have such a high mental strength. There's always someone better than you. Just because you don't know doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Maybe there is someone in this world with a higher spiritual power than me. Qin Feiyang said. If the first pagoda master was still alive, his spiritual power would definitely be higher than his. That's true. The second elder nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at the cauldron again. Although the water was already boiling, the divine blood in it had yet to solidify. The pieces of divine meat were also extremely fresh, as if they had just been put into the pot. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "It seems that this pot of soup will take at least a month to boil. If I could use your netherworld devil flame to refine it, it definitely wouldn't take this long. But this wok can't withstand the high temperature of the nether devil flame." The second elder said, "There's no rush. The soup has to be cooked slowly so that it will be more fragrant." Qin Feiyang smiled. The second elder nodded. "Brother Qin, young master." At this moment, Li Yun and Ning Mingyi walked side by side towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang turned his head and said with a smile, "What's the matter?" We suddenly thought of something that we can't figure out. Let's go over there and talk." Li Yun's tone was a little low as he pointed to the left corner of the square. Qin Feiyang nodded. The three of them walked to the edge of the square. Qin Feiyang said, "What exactly is it that you can't figure out?" "It's about the Guardian. Although the Guardian is afraid of Chang Shui, it has other means. For example, it can send us out of the Black Tortoise realm. Once we leave the Black Tortoise realm, it doesn't even need to do anything. Once 3 months are up, we will die under the devil mark. Or, it can send you out of the Black Tortoise realm alone. Without your help, we are equivalent to lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of it. But it didn't do that. Why did it leave us alone?" Li Yin and Li Yin frowned. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he heard this. Suddenly, Zhuge Mingyang appeared beside the three of them like a ghost and asked curiously, "What are you guys talking about? Why are you sneaking around?" Li Yin said in disgust, "It has nothing to do with you. Go away." "Are you sure you want me to go away? You have to know that I've been by its side for a while. I know a lot of things." Zhuge Mingyang teased. Li Yun said, "Then tell me, where did it take the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire and the Nether Hall?" "I don't know." Zhuge Mingyang shook his head. Li Yun said angrily, "Then why did you say that you know a lot of things?" "I asked it about this, but it didn't say. However, it said something very important." Zhuge Mingyang said, "What's the situation?" Qin Feiyang asked. Zhuge Mingyang said with a smile, "You should be mentally prepared because this news will drive you crazy. The fire dragon is not dead." "What?" Qin Feiyang's body shook and he said angrily, "How is that possible? I clearly saw its life fluctuations dissipating with my own eyes." "Yes, if there were no accidents it would definitely die. However, the giant python took the fire dragon to find an even more powerful person. It was this person who saved it," Zhuge Mingyang said. "What kind of person?" "The creator of the miracle," Qin Feiyang said. "According to the giant python, he's not the creator of the miracle, but he's almost the same. It also said that this person is very interested in you and explicitly asked it not to kill you," Zhuge Mingyang said with a smile. "Interested in me?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked in confusion, "Do I know him?" "I don't know. But according to what the giant python said, this person is indeed very powerful. Because only he can remove the devil mark. And the giant python also said that this person can control the thunder punishment of the miracle," Zhuge Mingyang said. "Thunder punishment?" Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. The last time he fought with the fire dragon and the giant python, the thunder punishment appeared at the end. If it weren't for Chang Shui and the power of the ancient castle's law, he would have died under the thunder punishment. In other words, as early as that time, this person had already targeted him. Not the creator, but almost the same as the creator. There was no suspense. This person's strength must be very high. It was not a good thing to be targeted by such a terrifying existence. Ning Mingyi and Zhuge Mingyi were even more terrified. He didn't expect that there would be such a big shot in the divine ruins, even more powerful than the giant serpent. Now they couldn't help but wonder whether following Qin Feiyang was right or wrong. "Wait." Suddenly, Li Yun looked up at Zhuge Mingyang and said, "You just said that the devil mark can only be removed by that big shot." "Yes. This is what the giant python said himself." Zhuge Mingyang nodded. Li Yun said again, that giant python can't be removed? That's right. Zhuge Mingyang nodded again. Isn't this completely hopeless? If the giant python can be removed, we still have a glimmer of hope. But that big shot is even more powerful than the giant python. How can we beat him? Li Yin exclaimed, her face full of despair. Ning Mingyi couldn't help but feel nervous, and secretly said, Young master, will your method really work? Qin Feiyang said, I haven't tried it yet, I don't know, but I believe that he won't lie to me. Him. Ning Mingyi was stunned and asked suspiciously, Who is he? You know him too. Let's go see him later. Qin Feiyang said, I know him too? Ning Mingyi was even more puzzled. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhuge Mingyang and said, The giant python can't remove the devil mark, which means that the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire and the Nether Palace are still in the Black Tortoise world. I really don't know about that. However, it did say that it would take the people of the Heavenly Sun Empire to a place. I also said the specific place just now, but the giant python didn't tell me. But according to my guess, if this place is not in the Black Tortoise world, then it should be a world similar to the Black Tortoise world. Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, You mean there is a second Black Tortoise world in the miracle? Here everything is possible, don't you think so? Zhuge Mingyang laughed. Qin Feiyang frowned. I can only think of these two possibilities. Either there really is a second Black Tortoise world, or Mu Tianyang and the others are still in the Black Tortoise world, but it's too hidden and we can't find them. Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyang scanned the area and shook his head. This place is really giving me a headache. Lu Mu, come here for a moment. Whoosh. Willow Tree flashed to Qin Feiyang's side and asked, What's the matter? Qin Feiyang took out Chang Shui and said, Here, Chang Shui. Stay here and watch out for the Guardian's sneak attack. Willow Tree took Chang Shui and asked, What about you? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said, I'm going to Soul Ceiling Valley to confirm something. Willow Tree hurriedly said, Then give me Chang Shui. What if the Guardian attacks you? I have the castle. It can't do anything to me. Besides, Soul Ceiling Valley is just ahead. If you hear the commotion, you can bring people to rescue us. Qin Feiyang said. Us. Willow Tree was stunned and asked suspiciously, Who else is going? Qin Feiyang said, Ning Mingyi. Li Yun said, Although I don't know what you're going to do, I'll go with you. Zhuge Mingyang smiled and said, Me too. With my current strength, I can help you. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhuge Mingyang and said indifferently, Only Ning Mingyi and I will go. The rest of you stay here. After that he looked at Ning Mingyi and said, Let's go. Ning Mingyi nodded. With a wave of his hand, he took Qin Feiyang to the sky and rushed toward Soul Ceiling Valley like lightning. If you don't let me go, I'll go and take a look. Zhuge Mingyang sneered, and was about to chase after them. Don't move or I'll kill you. But at this moment, Willow Tree grabbed Chang Shui and put it on Zhuge Mingyang's neck. Seeing this scene, Zhao Tailai and the others gathered in the center of the square also surrounded them. Are you sure you can kill me? The corner of Zhuge Mingyang's mouth curled up, and there was a trace of mockery that couldn't be removed. Before his voice fell, he disappeared into thin air without warning. Willow Tree's face changed. He quickly took out the image crystal and sent a message to Qin Feiyang. This place was a plain. Aeon City was located in the center of the plain, and Soul Ceiling Valley was at the end of the plain. Therefore, Qin Feiyang and Ning Mingyi were about to reach Soul Ceiling Valley. Buzz. The image crystal suddenly rang. Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal, and Willow Tree's shadow immediately appeared. He shouted, Young master, Zhuge Mingyang is following them. Be careful. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, I know. After that, he turned off the image crystal, turned around and scanned the void. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Buzz. Suddenly, the image crystal's buzzing sound rang again. But it was not Qin Feiyang's image crystal, but Ning Mingyi's. Ning Mingyi took out the image crystal from his arms. A black-clothed middle-aged man quickly appeared in the void. This person was about 1.8 meters tall and had an ordinary appearance. He was only a 9-star war emperor. It's you? Why are you looking for me? When Ning Mingi saw the middle-aged man, his expression was a little surprised and he asked suspiciously, "Alliance Master, something bad has happened. Just now, someone sent a message from the Devil's Land, saying that the stone gate of the Devil's Land has disappeared." The middle-aged man shouted. "What stone gate?" Ning Mingi was puzzled. "It's the entrance to the Black Tortoise Realm," the middle-aged man said. "What? The entrance disappeared?" Ning Mingi's gaze trembled, and he roared, "Say it again." "The entrance has disappeared," the middle-aged man said. Ning Mingi was like a bolt from the blue on the spot. His body and mind trembled and his mind rumbled. Qin Feiyang was the same. His face instantly turned pale, and even his vision turned black. Chapter 1631. Is the news true? After a while, Ning Mingi came back to his senses and asked the middle-aged man, "It's true?" The middle-aged man said, "Damn it!" Ning Mingi roared. The entrance had existed for so many years. How could it disappear for no reason? It must be the Guardian's doing. This move is really ruthless. Zhuge Mingyang appeared inside. "Weren't you with it at first? Didn't it tell you to destroy the entrance?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. "No." Zhuge Mingyang shook his head. Qin Feiyang sneered. "Then, do you regret being with us now?" "Of course. Why was I so stupid to be with you? If I was with the python, I would have left the Black Tortoise world long ago." Zhuge Mingi was extremely annoyed. "It's useless to regret. Now, even if we remove the devil mark, we can't leave the Black Tortoise world." Ning Mingi sighed and put away the image crystal. "What did you say? Remove the devil mark?" Zhuge Mingyang was surprised. Ning Mingi said impatiently, "I said even if the devil mark can be removed, I didn't say it can be removed." Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, then looked at Ning Mingi and asked, "Who was that person just now? Is his information reliable?" "He's the city lord of a small city in the northern part of the Black Tortoise world. For some reason, I have a personal relationship with him, so he shouldn't lie to me," Ning Mingi said. Qin Feiyang nodded and pondered for a while, then looked at Zhuge Mingyang and said, "Why don't you go to the Devil's Land to take a look? You have so many subordinates, but you don't want them to go. Why do you want me to go?" Zhuge Mingyang said unhappily. Qin Feiyang said, "They don't have powerful spatial divine items. What if they run to the Devil's Land and get caught by the Guardian?" "Then you can go too," Zhuge Mingyang said. "I have something to do and can't leave." Qin Feiyang frowned. "What is it? Could it be because of this Soul Seal Valley? Are there any secrets hidden inside?" Zhuge Mingyang was curious. "Aren't you annoying? Whether you go to the Devil's Land or not, don't follow me," Qin Feiyang said. "I followed you. Is Soul Sealing Valley your home? Are you the only one who can enter?" Zhuge Mingyang teased. Ning Mingi said angrily, "Why are you so unreasonable? Soul Sealing Valley is my home, so it's naturally the young master's home. What does it have to do with you?" Looks like there really is some secret hidden here." Zhuge Mingyang smiled playfully. Qin Feiyang was incomparably annoyed. He looked at Ning Mingi and said, "Let's go to the Devil's Land." "All right." Ning Mingi nodded and opened a portal. The two walked in one after another. Zhuge Mingyang did not follow in. He looked up at Soul Sealing Valley and sneered, "I'd like to see what secrets there are inside." Whoosh! Before his voice faded, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared into Soul Sealing Valley. The River of Erosion. The bridge. Qin Feiyang and Zhuge Mingi appeared out of thin air. Ning Mingi frowned and said, "Young master, I always feel that this Zhuge Mingyang's purpose of following us is not simple." "I know. He must be planning something. Maybe he's looking for an opportunity to let me kill him," Qin Feiyang said. "Let you kill him? What do you mean?" Ning Mingi was suspicious. "Let's talk as we walk," Qin Feiyang said. The two crossed the stone bridge one after another and entered the Devil's Land. On the way, Qin Feiyang briefly told Ning Mingi about Zhuge Mingyang's situation. After listening, Ning Mingi was shocked. There was such a thing in the world? He died once and was resurrected again, and his strength was soaring crazily. He didn't even need to comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god, and directly stepped into the false god realm. This was too strange. Ning Mingi asked, "Young master, what kind of demonic art did this Zhuge Mingyang cultivate?" "I don't know." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Then it seems that we have to be more careful when facing him in the future," Ning Mingi whispered. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to stare at Ning Mingi, saying, "Let me ask you again, do you and Li Yun really not have a 9th grade alchemy fire?" No. Ning Mingi shook his head like pounding garlic. "Let me tell you, I can peek into your inner thoughts through the enslavement seal. But because I respect and trust you, I didn't do that. So I want to say, please don't let me down," Qin Feiyang said. Ning Mingi looked a little hesitant. "In fact, Willow Tree has already told me that there are people in the Vanga League and the Vanga League who have a 9th grade alchemy fire. But do you know why I didn't expose it in front of you in Aeon City?" Qin Feiyang said. "Why?" Ning Mingi looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, "After all, there are so many people present, I have to save face for you." Ning Mingi smiled bitterly and nodded, saying, "Okay, I admit, Li Yun and I do have a 9th grade alchemy fire." After that, Ning Mingi stopped, and a stream of light swept out from between his eyebrows. It was a palm-sized alchemy fire, but it was different from other alchemy fires. This alchemy fire was reddish gold in color, dazzling and giving people a piercing sharpness. Although Li Yun and I have a 9th grade alchemy fire, because we can't find a 9th grade alchemy furnace, we have never used the 9th grade alchemy fire to refine elixirs all these years, Ning Mingi said regretfully. Qin Feiyang said, "At least you are honest." Ning Mingi smiled embarrassedly and gritted his teeth, saying, "Here you go." "No need, you can keep it first. Anyway, I don't need it now," Qin Feiyang said. "Don't need it?" Ning Mingi was taken aback. "Yes. First, I don't have a 9th grade alchemy furnace. Second, every time the Nether Devil Flame is upgraded, it needs 3 alchemy fires of the same level. Even with Li Yun's 9th grade alchemy fire, there are only 2 alchemy fires. It's not enough," Qin Feiyang said. "I see. Then you have to be mentally prepared. Although this 9th grade alchemy fire is not comparable to a divine artifact, it is rarer than a divine artifact. It can only be found by chance. Li Yun and I found our 9th grade alchemy fires in the divine ruins. And I haven't found the Black Tortoise realm yet," Ning Mingi said. Qin Feiyang nodded. Ning Mingi put away his alchemy fire and asked curiously, "What about Li Yun's alchemy fire? Do you plan to let him give it to you? A forcibly picked melon is not sweet. I will let him take the initiative to give it to me," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. A few hours later, the two finally entered the central area of the Devil's Land. Here, they could already sense the aura of pseudo-god level beasts. Qin Feiyang wondered if he should kill a ferocious beast now, and see if he could remove the devil imprint. But after thinking about it, he gave up on this idea. It was better not to alert the enemy. A moment later, the two landed in the sky above the square, and their expressions suddenly sank. The stone gate in the square had indeed disappeared. Ning Mingi sighed. "Young master, I'm afraid even you will be trapped in this place for the rest of your life. This beast is really despicable." Qin Feiyang snorted coldly, took out the image crystal, and sent a message to Willow Tree. Willow Tree's shadow appeared. Qin Feiyang said, "Has Zhuge Mingyang returned?" Willow Tree nodded and said, "He came back a long time ago, and now he seems to be in his space divine object." "Where are you now?" Qin Feiyang said, "We are in the Devil's Land." "Did the stone gate disappear?" Willow Tree asked. Li Yun and the others also quickly gathered around, looking nervously at Qin Feiyang. Obviously, Zhuge Mingyang had already told everyone. "It disappeared," Qin Feiyang said. "Damn it." Everyone was furious. Willow Tree looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "What should we do now?" "Don't panic. There's always a way out." Qin Feiyang comforted, turned off the image crystal, glanced at the square, and said to Ning Mingi, "Let's go to the Soul Sealing Valley." When the two arrived at the Soul Sealing Valley, the sky was already dark. In the Soul Sealing Valley, there was a white mist, which made the huge valley even more mysterious. Ning Mingi asked suspiciously, "Who are we looking for here?" No one knew the soul-sealing valley better than him. Except for his Vanga League people, there was no one else here. Qin Feiyong said, "Let's go in first." Ning Mingi hurriedly said, "No, your cultivation is not enough. You will be petrified if you go in." "I won't." Qin Feiyong smiled and stepped into the soul-sealing valley. But unexpectedly, his body quickly petrified and turned into a stone statue in the blink of an eye. "Didn't you say that I won't be petrified?" Ning Mingi was stunned and quickly rushed to Qin Feiyong's side, hugged the petrified Qin Feiyong, and prepared to leave the soul-sealing valley. Because as long as he was in the soul-sealing valley, the petrification state would immediately disappear. But just as he was about to leave the entrance, Ning Mingi suddenly stopped. He put down the petrified Qin Feiyong and looked at Qin Feiyong's face, with a cold light in his eyes. As the former owner of the soul-sealing valley, he naturally knew the effect of petrification. A petrified person would have no consciousness or perception, no different from a real stone statue. For him, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He was thinking, should he kill Qin Feiyong now? If he killed Qin Feiyong, he could regain his freedom, and nothing would change. He was still the leader of the Vanga League. He dominated the Black Tortoise world. But he really wanted to leave the Black Tortoise world and the miracle. After being trapped here for so many years, he had really had enough. But he was thinking, now that the stone door had disappeared, would Qin Feiyong still have a way to take him away? Also, if he really killed Qin Feiyong, what would happen if the Guardian came to take revenge on him? Because no matter what, he had already offended the Guardian, and that was an indisputable fact. He was constantly struggling in his heart. Fine. I'll take a gamble on him. Ning Mingi gritted his teeth, picked up the petrified Qin Feiyong again, and was about to leave. But at this moment, boom! A rule force descended from the sky, charging toward the two like lightning. Ning Mingi turned pale with fright. The Guardian was hiding in the dark? At the same time, Willow Tree and the others also sensed the aura of the rule force, and hurriedly rose into the air, looking toward the soul-sealing valley. As soon as he saw the rule force, Willow Tree's expression changed, and he hurriedly rushed toward the soul-sealing valley. Li Yin and the others also followed. Qin Feiyong cannot die. Chapter 1632. Damn it! Why was I hesitating just now? If I didn't hesitate, I would have retreated with Qin Feiyong. His petrification must have been lifted by now. Then now we can also hide in the castle. Ning Mingi was in despair. It was too late to regret. However, just as the rule force blasted down, accompanied by a loud bang, the castle rushed out from between Qin Feiyong's eyebrows. An invisible force surged toward the rule force like an avalanche. In an instant, time seemed to be still. The rule force stopped in the void motionless. Damn it! An angry curse sounded from the top of the sky. It was the giant python. Hearing the voice of the giant python, Ning Mingi looked up and roared. You are also a guardian, can't you be a little more above board? Humph! The giant python snorted coldly and instantly disappeared without a trace. The rule force also quickly dissipated. Ning Mingi hurriedly carried the petrified Qin Feiyong and retreated from the soul-sealing valley. His whole body was dripping with cold sweat and fear. First, it was because of the Guardian. Second, it was because of the castle. If he really wanted to kill Qin Feiyong before, the castle would definitely take the initiative to protect him. At that time, with Qin Feiyong's character, he would definitely not let him off easily. Thank goodness. He didn't do that. After leaving the soul-sealing valley, Qin Feiyong's petrified state quickly disappeared. His eyes were full of confusion. Looking at the castle, he looked at Ning Mingi and asked, What happened just now? Why did the castle wake up? Just as you entered the soul-sealing valley, you were immediately petrified. I was about to bring you out, but the Guardian came. It was the castle that saved us. Ning Mingi laughed. You're really haunting me. Qin Feiyong was extremely angry. Whoosh! At this time, Willow Tree and the others came through the air. Willow Tree quickly asked, Young master, are you okay? I'm fine. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and with a thought, the ancient castle disappeared into his glabella. It's good that you're okay. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyang looked up at Soul Ceiling Valley, a trace of suspicion in the depths of his eyes. What did this mysterious man mean? Wasn't it supposed to be a collaboration? Why was he petrified? Little brother, I'm sorry. But suddenly, the mysterious man's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang thought. Originally, I wanted to come out to see you, but I suddenly realized that the guardian was watching you from above. If I don't petrify you, it will definitely be able to tell. The mysterious man said. I see. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. The mysterious man transmitted his voice. Other than the protectors, you also have to be careful of Ning Mingi. Be careful of Ning Mingi? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Yes. After you were petrified, he could have brought you out in time. However, he hesitated, and his eyes were filled with killing intent towards you. The mysterious man said. Qin Feiyang glanced at Ning Mingi. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. The mysterious man said, Little brother, why did you come looking for me? Qin Feiyang said, The stone gate to leave the Black Tortoise Realm has disappeared. I wanted to ask you, is there any other way to leave the Black Tortoise Realm? What? The stone gate disappeared. The mysterious man was shocked. Yes. Qin Feiyang thought. This stinky snake is really vicious. It's obvious that it wants to trap you here. The mysterious man said. I know. That's why I came looking for you. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. The mysterious man went silent for a while, then said, There is no other exit from the Black Tortoise Realm, but I do have a way to leave. How do we leave? Qin Feiyang quickly asked. The mysterious man said, At the end of the desert, there is a palace. The end of the desert? Qin Feiyang was stunned, then asked, Are you talking about the desert in the depths of the departed Spirit Mountain range? Yes, the mysterious man said. If you can find that palace, you can leave the Black Tortoise Realm, but, at this point, the mysterious man's words stopped abruptly. But what? Qin Feiyang asked. The mysterious man said, Normal people can't open the gate to the palace, only the creator can do so, not even the guardian can. Qin Feiyang's face twitched, thinking, Then isn't that the same as saying nothing? Even the guardian couldn't open the gate to the palace, let alone him. No. You shouldn't be discouraged. You should think of a way to open the gate to the palace. Because there is a supreme treasure hidden inside the palace. With that supreme treasure, you can control the Black Tortoise Realm. The mysterious man said. What? Control the Black Tortoise Realm? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. The mysterious man said. Qin Feiyang was shocked. Are you sure you're not joking with me? I'm sure. The mysterious man said with absolute certainty. Qin Feiyang was extremely excited. Control the Black Tortoise Realm. He had never thought of this before. Moreover, when you control the Black Tortoise Realm, not only can you escape, you can also directly remove the devil mark on everyone. Of course, the guardian won't let you barge in easily, but I believe that you will definitely have a way. The mysterious man said. Qin Feiyang was even more tempted when he heard that. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and said to himself, If the guardian notices my motive and moves the supreme treasure out of the Black Tortoise Realm in advance, what should I do? The mysterious man smiled. It doesn't have the ability to do so, because that supreme treasure, other than the master of the Black Tortoise Realm, no one can take it out of the Black Tortoise Realm. The master of the Black Tortoise Realm? Wait. The master of the Black Tortoise Realm should be the creator of the miracle. Then you're asking me to snatch it from the creator, Qin Feiyang said. Don't worry. The creator is not in the miracle. Moreover, to the creator, a mere Black Tortoise Realm won't bother him at all. As long as you have the ability, the Black Tortoise Realm will be yours. The mysterious man said. Qin Feiyang said to himself, Don't lie to me, this isn't child's play. The mysterious man said helplessly, If you can obtain the Black Tortoise Realm, It's also a good thing for me. Why would I lie to you? Good thing? Could it be that when I obtain the Black Tortoise realm, you can break the seal and regain your freedom? Qin Feiyong said. The mysterious man said, it's not as simple as you say. These things can wait until you obtain the Black Tortoise realm. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and said to himself, all right, I'll give it a try. Can you let me go to the land of inheritance now? What's the rush? Once you obtain that supreme treasure, everything here will be yours. Naturally, that includes the land of inheritance. And if you want to come in now, then I will definitely petrify you, otherwise the guardian will not let me go. The mysterious man said. All right. Last question. You told me earlier that the hearts of the pseudo-god level beasts in the Black Tortoise realm can remove the devil mark. Is that true? Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. Of course it's true. The mysterious man replied. That's good. After I go into seclusion for a while, I will go to the end of the desert and look for that palace. Qin Feiyong said to himself. Good luck. After the mysterious man finished speaking, his voice never sounded again. The conversation between the two was carried out in secret, so Willow Tree and the others next to them did not know about it. However, they were all puzzled. Qin Feiyong looked at the soul-sealing valley motionlessly and did not say a word. What was he trying to do? Let's go back. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong retracted his gaze and looked at everyone with a smile. Go back? In the crowd, Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. He also rushed over when the giant python appeared. Originally, he thought that Qin Feiyong must have some reason to enter the soul-sealing valley, but he did not expect that he was going to go back. Qin Feiyong also glanced at Zhuge Mingyang, his eyes flashing, and walked forward with a smile. Did you find anything when you entered the soul-sealing valley? I didn't go in, Zhuge Mingyang said. When Ning Mingi and I went to the Devil's Land, you didn't enter the soul-sealing valley. Who are you lying to? Qin Feiyong sneered. Zhuge Mingyang chuckled and said, I really can't hide anything from you. Yes, I did go in and found a strange place. What place? Qin Feiyong said. In the deepest part of the soul-sealing valley, there is a stone tower. I sensed a very terrifying aura inside. But there is a seal on the stone tower. I tried my best, but I couldn't break this seal. Zhuge Mingyang frowned. Stone tower? Seal. Qin Feiyong was surprised. Zhuge Mingyang looked at Qin Feiyong's expression and said, Don't tell me you don't know. I really don't know. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Zhuge Mingyang was slightly taken aback and puzzled. Then why did you enter the soul-sealing valley? Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Nothing, I'm just curious about the soul-sealing valley. Just curious? Zhuge Mingyang was stunned. Was that so? But why did he feel that this reason was really hard to believe? Back in the square, Ning Mingi asked, Young master, what do we do next? Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. You guys continue to stew. You still have the mood to cultivate in seclusion? Ning Mingi was really speechless. Did this young master know what the situation was now? We'll cross the bridge when we get there. There's nothing to worry about. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and ignored everyone. He directly entered the ancient castle and continued to copy the last stroke of the Xing character formula. Relying on the divine flesh of the giant python, his cultivation base was lucky enough to break through to the 8-star combat emperor. When he finished copying the last stroke of the Xing character formula, he would be able to step into the 9-star combat emperor realm. Then he would take the 5 elements universe pill and directly enter the peak combat emperor realm. He was only one step away from the false god realm. Outside, Zhuge Mingyang glanced at Ning Mingi's group and shook his head. If you follow this bastard, you'll be killed by him sooner or later. Don't fan the flames here. If you have the ability, take us out of the Black Tortoise boundary. Willow Tree snorted coldly. You still don't believe me? Then wait and see. Sooner or later, you'll know how wrong your decision to follow Qin Feiyong is. Zhuge Mingyang sneered and also entered the spatial divine item. Sigh. How worrisome. Ning Mingi sighed deeply. The others' faces were also full of worry. Chapter 1633. Time flew by. A month passed. The snake soup outside was finally done stewing. The god meat snake soup that was simmered over a slow fire was truly delicious. Everyone's appetite was whetted as they ate bowl after bowl. Fatso and the others naturally wouldn't miss out on such delicacies, and also ran out to eat and drink. Only Qin Feiyang stayed in the castle to cultivate silently. Although the snake soup was delicious, it was no longer able to increase everyone's cultivation. However, it could still strengthen their physique. Now, whether it was Ning Mingi and the others, or Fatso and the others, they could all kill people of the same realm in an instant. Another month passed. Boom. On this day, Qin Feiyang's entire body suddenly emitted a huge aura. His cultivation soared straight to the 9-star War Emperor. At the same time, the attainment character under his fingertips shot out rays of dazzling divine light. Following closely, the attainment character turned into a ray of light and entered Qin Feiyang's glabella like lightning. Fatso opened his eyes, looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Boss, how do you feel?" Qin Feiyang closed the iron book and smiled. "I haven't tried it yet. How would I know how it feels?" "Then quickly go out and try it," Fatso urged. Qin Feiyang nodded, his figure flashed, and appeared in the plaza outside. A month ago, after eating the snake soup, everyone cultivated in the plaza, using the ability of the god meat to temper their bodies. Sensing Qin Feiyang's aura, Ning Mingi, Li Yun, and Willow Tree immediately opened their eyes. And, upon seeing Qin Feiyang, the three of them were stunned. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Li Yun asked, "Brother Qin, did you break through?" Qin Feiyang nodded and asked doubtfully, "Is there a problem?" "Of course there's a problem. 2 months ago, you just broke through to the 8-star War Emperor, and now you're breaking through again. This is too fast," Li Yin said. 2 months. Qin Feiyang was stunned and then shook his head with a wry smile. In fact, 600 days had passed in the ancient castle, which was almost 2 years. 600 days had passed in the castle, but only 2 months had passed outside. Breaking through from an 8-star combat emperor to a 9-star combat emperor in 2 months was indeed a little too ridiculous. Maybe it's because I'm lucky. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said with a smile. "Good luck?" Li Yin was speechless. What did luck have to do with cultivation? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Let's not talk about this first. Which one of you wants to compete with me in speed?" "Compete in speed?" The three of them were stunned. The Willow Tree said strangely, "Young master, we are all fake gods. Are you sure you want to compete with us in speed?" "I'll give it a try. Let's see who gets to Soul Ceiling Valley first," Qin Feiyang said. Li Yin stood up, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said with a smile, "Brother Qin, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you're overestimating yourself. Competing with us in speed is simply asking for a beating." Qin Feiyang said, "Cut the crap, come on. Okay, I'll satisfy you. I'll compete with you. We're competing to see who gets to Soul Ceiling Valley first, right?" Li Yin asked. Qin Feiyang nodded. Li Yin walked to Qin Feiyang's side, stood side by side and said, "Why don't you set off first, and I'll catch up with you after 5 breaths." Qin Feiyang was helpless. Li Yin smiled and said, "I'm doing this for your own good. Otherwise, when I win later, you'll say that I bullied you. Don't give me that. Let's set off together, let's go." Qin Feiyang shouted in a low voice and activated the attainment formula. Divine light burst out from under his feet. When he took off his shoes, everyone could see that the word attainment had appeared on the soles of his feet. Swish. As he took a step forward, he instantly disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Li Yin was stunned. This speed was actually faster than a 9-star combat emperor at the peak realm. And it was not just a little faster. What's going on? He disappeared with a single step. Why does this look like the legendary teleportation? Ning Mingi and Willow Tree also looked at each other. When Li Yin came back to his senses, he hurriedly rushed into the sky and rushed towards Soul Ceiling Valley. But when he arrived at the entrance of Soul Ceiling Valley, Qin Feiyang was already waiting there. Qin Feiyang said unhappily, "Didn't I ask you to set off together?" "Wait. Your speed is abnormal." Without a trace, why does it look like teleportation? Li Yun frowned. Flying in the air, no matter how fast one was, even if one used an auxiliary divine art, there would still be traces left behind. Only the legendary teleportation could disappear without a trace. Qin Feiyang smiled and did not answer. He said, "Let's compete again and see who gets to the square first." Okay. Li Yun nodded and walked to Qin Feiyang's side. He took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyang. "We can set off at any time." This time, he did not dare to be careless and took it very seriously. "Let's go." Qin Feiyang roared, used the attainment formula, and instantly disappeared without a trace. It's really teleportation. Li Yun also broke through the air at the same time. Looking at the empty void in front of him, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Whoosh. Swish. But in the end, the first to arrive at the square was still Li Yun. However, Qin Feiyang was not far behind. In less than 3 breaths of time after Li Yun arrived at the square, Qin Feiyang also appeared on the square. However, although Li Yun arrived first, Li Yun's face was filled with disbelief. Although Qin Feiyang's speed was a little slower than his, it was actually not much different. Ning Mingyi looked at Qin Feiyang and Li Yun and asked, "Did you guys set off together?" "Yes." Li Yun nodded. "How is this possible?" Ning Mingyi's face was also filled with shock. "Young master, are you sure you are only a 9-star war emperor? You didn't hide your cultivation from us?" Willow Tree also had a look of disbelief. "I want to hide my cultivation." Qin Feiyang was speechless. Hearing this, Willow Tree and the other two looked at each other. With the cultivation of a 9-star war emperor, his speed was almost comparable to them. Fake gods? This was too ridiculous. The others also stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Especially Zhao Ximing, Ning Yifeng and Li Chang. Their eyes were about to pop out. Li Chang swallowed his saliva and said, "Uncle Qin, can we compete?" "Sure." Qin Feiyang nodded. Li Chang hurriedly ran to Qin Feiyang's side and nodded to Qin Feiyang. "Let's go." The two set off at the same time. Ning Mingyi and the others also soared into the sky and looked at the two of them. The group of people were all dumbfounded, because they saw that when Qin Feiyang rushed to the Soul Sealing Valley and rushed back from the Soul Sealing Valley, Li Chang was still halfway to the Soul Sealing Valley. In other words, Qin Feiyang had already made a round trip, and Li Chang had not yet arrived at the Soul Sealing Valley. Moreover, Li Chang also used a perfect auxiliary battle art. Chang, Er's cultivation is higher than yours, and he even used an auxiliary battle art, but his speed is actually so much worse than yours? How did you do it? Li Yun looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I just mastered an auxiliary divine art." Auxiliary divine art? Everyone was stunned. Even if it was an auxiliary divine art, it couldn't be so ridiculous. After a while, Li Chang finally ran back breathlessly, shook his head with a wry smile, and cupped his hands. "Uncle Qin, this nephew admires you." Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. This kid, the more he called him, the smoother it got. Willow Tree gathered his thoughts and said, "Young master, back to the topic, more than 2 months have passed, you have to hurry up." "You mean the devil mark?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Yes. Now you only have 3 months left. If you can't find a way to leave the Black Tortoise realm in these 3 months, then you—" Willow Tree said this and did not continue, because he believed that Qin Feiyang could understand. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "Even if the devil mark appears, it doesn't matter, but it's time to set off. Get ready." "Where are we going?" Willow Tree asked. "The end of the desert," Qin Feiyang said, his eyes flashing. "What? The end of the desert? Are you sure you're not joking? Back then Ning Mingyi and I spent half a year, but we still couldn't find the end of the desert." Li Yun hurriedly said. "Yes. Since ancient times the Black Tortoise realm has given birth to countless experts, but no one knows how big and deep the desert is. It's very likely that there's no end. Moreover, even if there is an end, we won't be able to reach it. Because the storm in the depths of the desert is enough to threaten the lives of us false gods." Ning Mingyi followed. "Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and entered the castle. Looking at Dan Wangkai standing in front of the pill furnace, he asked, "Do you have the 5 elements universe pill?" "Yes. Last time I tried to refine a few, but they all had 5 pill patterns." Dan Wangkai said. 5 pill patterns only had an average success rate. But now, the Netherworld demonic flame had been upgraded to the 9th grade. Without a 9th grade pill furnace, he couldn't start refining pills at all. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang said, "Take it out for me to try. I hope I'm lucky enough to break through to the peak." If he had known, he should have refined some 5 elements universe pills in advance. Dan Wangkai nodded, took out a jade box from his Qianquan bag, and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed the jade box and opened the lid. A surge of majestic 5 elements elemental energy immediately gushed out. The 5 elements universe pill was made from the essence of the 4th fire, the essence of the Kuei water, the essence of the 2nd wood, the essence of the 6th earth, and the refinement of the 8th metal. Therefore, there was no medicinal fragrance. He looked down at the jade box. Inside the jade box, there were 4 pills lying quietly. They were only the size of pellets, and they were 5-colored, like colorful gems. Qin Feiyang grabbed a 5 elements universe pill, looked at it for a while, and put it in his mouth. Then he returned the jade box to Dan Wangkai, sat cross-legged on the ground, and closed his eyes. Boom. Just as he closed his eyes, the energy of the 5 elements universe pill burst out in his body. The power of the 5 elements surged like angry waves, rushing to his limbs and bones. A sharp pain suddenly swept through his body. The huge energy seemed to be tearing his body apart. He gritted his teeth and persisted. As the energy continued to melt, it merged with his body and battle chi. Boom. All of a sudden, his aura broke out of his body uncontrollably, and it was getting stronger and stronger. "My luck can't be so good, right?" Dan Wangkai murmured. The 5 elements universe pill with 5 pill patterns, half of the success and half of the failure, completely depended on luck. If he was lucky, he would succeed in 1 try. If he was unlucky, he might not succeed in several or even dozens of tries. And now, Chapter 1634. However, there were often too many accidents in things. Seeing that Qin Feiyang was about to succeed, the soaring momentum suddenly stopped. Failed. Dan Wangkai was stunned. Qin Feiyang also opened his eyes, full of helplessness. He looked at Dan Wangkai and said, "Again." Dan Wangkai nodded, took out a 5 elements universe elixir and handed it to Qin Feiyang. But the result? Failed again. Again. Still failed. Again. But the best result was still a failure. What's the situation? I actually failed 4 times? Qin Feiyang was very depressed. Didn't Uncle Yuan say that he was a person with great luck? Then where was his luck now? "Young master, my alchemy fire is now a 7th grade alchemy fire. Why don't you refine one?" Dan Wangkai asked. Qin Feiyang could refine an elixir with 6 elixir patterns with a 7th grade alchemy fire. Although there was only 1 more pattern, the success rate would greatly increase. 7th grade alchemy fire? Qin Feiyang was stunned and lowered his head to ponder. Over the years, he had been thinking about improving the Netherworld Devil Flame, and completely ignored Dan Wangkai's problem. Since Dan Wangkai followed him, he had been helping him to refine elixirs, which saved him a lot of time. He should find a higher grade alchemy fire for Dan Wangkai. Thinking of this, he got up and looked at Dan Wangkai smiling. "Let's talk about this later." After that, he appeared in the square outside. Everyone was ready, waiting for Qin Feiyang to come out. Qin Feiyang looked at Willow Tree and said, "Except for Ning Mingi, the rest of the Vanga League are all sent to your Space Divine Object." "My Space Divine Object?" Willow Tree was stunned. Qin Feiyang said, "Didn't I give you Li Chang's spatial divine item last time?" Hearing Qin Feiyang suddenly mention this matter, Li Chang, who was standing in the crowd, had an awkward expression. "Yeah. Look at my memory, I actually forgot about this." Willow Tree slapped his head in realization. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Then he looked at Li Yin and said, "Send your people into the spatial divine item as well. It's troublesome to have too many people." The few of us will be fine outside. All right. Li Yin nodded. Actually, you can also enter my spatial divine item. This spatial divine item of mine is quite big. At this moment, Zhuge Mingyang appeared out of thin air, looked at Li Yin and mocked her. Are you dreaming? Li Yin sneered. With a wave of her hand, everyone from Fengtian Palace disappeared instantly. Willow Tree also sent Li Chang and the others into the spatial divine item. The square suddenly became deserted. Only Qin Feiyang, Willow Tree, Ning Mingyi, Li Yin and Zhuge Mingyang were left. Willow Tree suddenly said, Young master, have you also forgotten one thing? What? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Willow Tree said with a sneaky smile. Your little lover, Wang Yu. Yes, and her. Qin Feiyang slapped his head, then glared at Willow Tree and said angrily, What nonsense are you talking about? What little lover? Isn't it? Willow Tree smiled sinisterly. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes, took out the image crystal stone, and sent a message to Wang Yu. However, Wang Yu did not respond. What's going on? Qin Feiyang frowned and sent another message. Time passed breath by breath. Zhuge Mingyang's eyes flashed slightly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I have an ominous feeling. Qin Feiyang's eyelids twitched. He looked up at Zhuge Mingyang and said in a deep voice, What do you want to say? Zhuge Mingyang said, Don't you already know in your heart? Why are you still asking me? Impossible. The guardian doesn't know her relationship with me at all. Qin Feiyang said, The guardian doesn't know, but Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing know. They hate you to the core. It's not strange for them to tell the guardian, right? Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyang's face was as dark as water. Even if the giant python knows the relationship between Wang Yu and young master, it doesn't know where Wang Yu is. Can you not make trouble here? Willow Tree glared at Zhuge Mingyang. Wrong. Let's not talk about the guardian first. Mu Qing can easily find Wang Yu's whereabouts. I believe Brother Qin knows this better than me. Zhuge Mingyang laughed. Shut up. Qin Feiyang shouted angrily, and continued to send messages to Wang Yu. But after waiting for a while, there was still no response. Could it be, as Zhuge Mingyang said, that Wang Yu had fallen into the hands of the guardian? Qin Feiyang clenched his hands, looked at Ning Mingyi and Li Yun, and asked, Who in your Vanga League and Fengtian Palace has established a contract bridge with Wang Yuanshan? Young master, are you confused? Aren't the 6 elders right beside us? They and Wang Yuanshan are all elders of the main tower. They must have established a contract bridge with each other. Willow Tree said. Qin Feiyang shivered and hurriedly entered the castle. He's not confused. He's confused. He's confused because he's concerned. It means that Wang Yu still has some weight in his heart. No. I should say that she's quite important. Zhuge Mingyang smiled playfully. How do you know? Are you a roundworm in his stomach? Willow Tree looked at him in disgust. Of course I know. Because I know him too well. He's a very, very calm person. I've never seen him so flustered even when facing a fake god. Zhuge Mingyang said. In that case, young master's cold heart has indeed melted. Wang Yu. Willow Tree murmured. In the castle, the 6 elders stood in front of Qin Feiyang and tried to send messages to Wang Yuanshan one by one. However, just like Wang Yu, there was no response at all. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, Feiyang, forgive me for being blunt, but I'm afraid this is really bad. You don't have to worry. I'll find out. Qin Feiyang smiled and left the castle. How was it? Willow Tree asked. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Their hearts sank as well. You can actually send a message to Mu Qing. At the same time, you can also confirm whether he's still in the Black Tortoise world. Zhuge Mingyang said. Qin Feiyang heard this and immediately took out an image crystal to send a message to Mu Qing. However, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. He didn't respond to you. This means that he and Mu Tianyang have really left the Black Tortoise world. If Wang Yu and Wang Yuanshan really fell into the hands of the protectors, they must be with them now. Being outside the Black Tortoise world, they naturally can't receive your message. Zhuge Mingyang said. Willow Tree said angrily. Can you stop talking? Can't I tell you the truth? Zhuge Mingyang pursed his lips. You talk too much. Willow Tree glared at Zhuge Mingyang, then looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Young master, don't worry too much. If Wang Yu really fell into the hands of the protectors, they definitely won't kill her because they still need to use her to threaten you. Willow Tree's words are reasonable. Ning Mingyi and Li Yin nodded. Qin Feiyang's gaze was uncertain. After a long time, he let out a long breath and looked at Ning Mingyi and Li Yin, asking, where else in the Black Tortoise world can we find a grade 8 pill fire? What do you want a grade 8 pill fire for? The two of them were suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, not only do I want a grade 8 pill fire, I also want a grade 8 pill furnace. Ning Mingyi gritted his teeth and said, I have a grade 8 pill furnace, I can give it to you. First a grade 8 pill fire, now a grade 8 pill furnace. How many things are you hiding behind my back? Didn't I say to give everything you have to Dan Wangkai and Lu Hong? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said angrily. If it wasn't for the incident in the Soul Sealing Valley, he wouldn't care. But this person wanted to harm him in the Soul Sealing Valley? So now, he had to start to doubt this person's loyalty. Ning Mingyi's gaze trembled and he hurriedly said, I swear, I only have a pill furnace left. Take it out. Qin Feiyang said. Ning Mingyi waved his hand, and a golden light swept out from between his eyebrows. It was a dazzling pill furnace, as if cast from gold, with a lifelike golden dragon engraved on it. This is the Golden Dragon Furnace, a genuine grade 8 pill furnace. After Ning Mingyi wiped off the blood qi, he respectfully handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and sent it into the ancient castle, saying, Dan Wangkai, this Golden Dragon Furnace is yours from now on. Thank you, young master. Dan Wangkai in the ancient castle held the Golden Dragon Furnace. As if he had received a treasure, his face was full of joy. Qin Feiyang looked at Ning Mingyi and asked, what about the grade 8 pill fire? Grade 8 pill fire. Ning Mingyi thought for a while and said, as far as I know, other than us, it seems that only the city lord of Seven Demons City has a cluster of grade 8 pill fire. Seven Demons City? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Young master, this Seven Demons City is very famous in the Black Tortoise world, but its bad name is spread far and wide. Because Seven Demons City is a place where dragons and snakes mix together, the people inside are basically all vicious and evil people. Especially the seven demons, they bully men and women, kill people for their possessions, and commit all kinds of crimes. These seven demons are seven blood brothers. They all have the cultivation of false divinity, and the city lord is the leader of the seven demons. However, even though they often commit crimes, they still know their limits and have never infringed on the interests of us few big forces. Therefore, we also did not bother with them. Willow Tree explained. Qin Feiyang said, let's go to Seven Demons City immediately. Okay. Willow Tree nodded, took out a teleportation gate and quickly opened it. After Qin Feiyang entered the teleportation gate, Willow Tree and the others followed in one after another. In the next moment, the few of them descended in the sky above a mountain range. The mountain range was long and undulating, with many towering peaks standing tall. And right below, there was a huge deep pit, filled with cracks and broken pieces. The surroundings of the deep pit were also filled with devastation. Qin Feiyang scanned the area below and asked suspiciously, where is Seven Demons City? Wait. Willow Tree stretched out his hand. Immediately, he scanned the surrounding mountains and frowned slightly, then lowered his head to look at the deep pit below and said, that's right, this is Seven Demons City, but where is the city? Seven Demons City is indeed here. But how did it become a deep pit? Ning Mingyi and Li Yin also said, their faces full of suspicion. Not only did they not see the city, they did not even see a single person. Zhuge Mingyang said, from the looks of it, the city seems to have been destroyed. You guys sense it carefully. There seems to be remnants of battle aura in the void here. Qin Feiyang and the other three sensed it carefully. And indeed, they could feel some aura. But it was very weak. They could not tell who had left the aura behind. From the situation below, this Seven Demons City has been destroyed for at least half a month. But other than the few of us, Who else has the ability to destroy 7 demon city? Ningmingi scanned the deep pit, then looked up at Willow Tree and Li Yun, frowning and asking. Willow Tree and Li Yun shook their heads. They could not figure it out either. Because for the past 2 months, everyone had been in Aeon City and no one had left. The only one who was not with them, Netherworld Hall, had also been taken away by the Guardians 2 months ago. And the overall strength of 7 Demon City was second only to the few of them. Logically speaking, no one should be able to threaten 7 Demon City. Chapter 1635. Li Yun suddenly looked at a giant peak on the left and shouted, "Who's there?" Qin Feiyang, Willow Tree, Ningmingi, and Zhuge Mingyang were shocked and turned their heads to look. That giant peak was about 1,000 feet high and was covered with vegetation. Someone's there. Ningmingi was suspicious. I saw a figure just now, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Li Yun nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "Let's go and take a look." Whoosh! The 5 of them cut through the sky and quickly flew above the giant peak, looking down at the peak. But other than the dense weeds and trees, they didn't see anyone. Qin Feiyang said, "Look for it with your divine sense." The 4 of them immediately released their divine sense and rushed towards the peak. Want to leave? The next moment, almost at the same time, the 4 of them roared and the power of the false god rolled out and rushed towards the void on the right side of the peak. There's really someone? Qin Feiyang was surprised. And this person has a space divine item. Willow Tree said. A space divine item. Looks like he's not a simple character. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. Whoosh! Suddenly, a burly man appeared in the void and hurriedly said, "Lords, don't do anything." "It's you?" Willow Tree and the other 2 were stunned. This burly man was 2 meters tall and had a head of thick black hair, like a small giant. His upper body was exposed, only wearing a pair of large black pants. His body was muscular, and there was a shocking scar on his face like a centipede, giving off a bandit aura. The burly man looked at Willow Tree and the other 2 and bowed. "Greetings, Alliance Master, Palace Master, and Elder Lu." "Who is he?" Qin Feiyang asked. "He is the leader of the 7 Fiends, the city lord of 7 Fiends City, Cui Li." After Willow Tree finished speaking, he looked at Cui Li and said, "I don't think I need to introduce you to this person beside me." As for Zhuge Mingyang, Willow Tree completely ignored him. Cui Li hurriedly turned to Qin Feiyang and bowed. "This lowly one," Cui Li greets young Master Qin. Qin Feiyang asked, "What's the situation here?" "What a sin." Cui Li let out a sorrowful sigh. Looking at the 5 of them, he said, "This was all done by the Guardians." "What? Guardian? How did you provoke it?" Qin Feiyang and the other 3 were quite surprised. Cui Li raged, "It's all because of Wang Yuanshan." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and asked suspiciously, "What does this have to do with Wang Yuanshan?" 2 months ago, Wang Yuanshan brought Wang Yu to my 7 Fiend City. Wang Yuanshan and I are close friends, so I let him and Wang Yu stay in 7 Fiend City. Furthermore, we treated them with good wine and meat. Just half a month ago, the Guardian came to 7 Fiend City and asked us to hand Wang Yuanshan and Wang Yu over to it. I saw that the Guardian did not come with good intentions, so I wanted to delay the Guardian and let Wang Yuanshan and Wang Yu secretly leave 7 Fiend City. Tell me, am I not being loyal enough by doing this? Cui Li roared. Zhuge Mingyang nodded and said, "You are using your own life as a wager. You are indeed loyal." But guess what Wang Yuanshan did? I asked him to secretly leave 7 Fiend City, but not only did he not leave, he even ran to the Guardian and flattered it. He even betrayed me, saying that I went against the Guardian's wishes and asked him and Wang Yu to secretly leave. When the Guardian heard this, it was furious and directly destroyed the entire 7 Fiend City. Everyone in the city instantly ceased to exist. My 6 younger brothers self-destructed as well. I saw that the situation was bad, so I pretended to be dead to escape. Cui Li sighed. Willow Tree said angrily, "This Wang Yuanshan really deserves to die. It's my fault. I shouldn't have let him off." Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and said in frustration. Zhuge Mingyang said, "Wasn't he controlled by your slavery seal? Why don't you know what he is thinking?" Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "I was in seclusion, how would I have the time to care about him? Tell me the truth. Don't blame me for saying this. Sometimes you are just too indecisive." Zhuge Mingyang shook his head. Qin Feiyang looked at Cui Li and said, "In that case, Wang Yuer is now in the hands of the Guardian?" "Yes. Wang Yuer is not bad. When she saw Wang Yuanshan betraying me, her face was full of disappointment, and she even wanted to cut ties with Wang Yuanshan. Because of this, Wang Yuanshan flew into a rage. If the Guardian hadn't stopped him, he would have killed Wang Yuer on the spot. That bastard is really inhumane. It's fine if he betrayed me, but he actually attacked his family. How hateful." Cui Li said in disgust, his eyes full of killing intent. "He really deserves to die." Li Yin and Ning Mingyi also nodded. Willow Tree said, "Young master, can't your slavery seal kill people from a distance? Why don't you just erase his soul now? Killing him like this is too easy for him." Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. "Yes. This kind of person must suffer a fate worse than death." Zhuge Mingyang nodded. Willow Tree said, "Then try and see if you can sense Wang Yuanshan's current location through the slavery seal." Qin Feiyang closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened his eyes and shook his head. "Sigh." Willow Tree sighed, turned to look at Cui Li and asked, "Why didn't you come to us after such a big thing happened?" "For the past half a month, I've been hiding in the spatial divine item, not daring to go out. Actually, I also thought of looking for you. But I was afraid. Because if I went to look for you and was discovered by the Guardian, it would be even more impossible to let me go." Cui Li said. Qin Feiyang said, "So you plan to drag out an ignoble existence like this? What else can I do? It's the Guardian. Do I dare to go against it?" Cui Li said, "A person must have a backbone. We used to be afraid of it like you, but haven't we started to resist now?" Li Yin said, "Is resistance useful?" Cui Li shook his head and laughed at himself. Li Yin said, "Whether resistance is useful or not, at least we've tried." "That's right. If we try, there's still hope. If we don't, we're just waiting for death. I don't want to be like my predecessors, trapped here for the rest of my life. Even if I fail in the end and die in the hands of the Guardian, I won't regret it, because at least I tried." Ning Mingyi said each word with a pause, his words sonorous and powerful. Cui Li looked at the two, then at Qin Feiyang, Willow Tree and Zhuge Mingyang. He gritted his teeth, nodded, and said, "What's the difference between a person without backbone and trash? All right, I'll accompany you." Qin Feiyang smiled, extended his hand, and said, "Welcome." "Thank you. In the future, I hope young Master Qin will take care of me." Cui Li grabbed Qin Feiyang's hand and held it tightly. "We'll take care of each other." Qin Feiyang smiled. Willow Tree reminded, "Young Master, don't forget our purpose in coming to Seven Fiends City this time." "Purpose?" Cui Li looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, "I want Brother Chui's grade 8 elixir fire. I hope Brother Chui can part with it." This, Cui Li's expression froze. Qin Feiyang smiled again. "Of course, now that we're all friends, if Brother Chui is not willing, I won't force you." Cui Li looked at Qin Feiyang, suddenly smiled and said, "Young Master Qin, what are you saying? Isn't it just a grade 8 elixir fire? Anyway, my alchemy talent isn't that great, I'll give it to you." After saying that, a fist-sized elixir fire flew out from Cui Li's body, in front of Qin Feiyang, and erased the blood contract. Actually, he wasn't such a generous person. The reason why he gave it to Qin Feiyang so readily was because he liked Qin Feiyang's character. With Qin Feiyang's methods, he could take it by force, but he didn't do so. Secondly, now that they were on the same boat, he still needed to rely on Qin Feiyang to survive. "Thank you," Qin Feiyang said gratefully, and brought the elixir fire into the ancient castle to refine the 5 elements universe elixir. Facing a new elixir fire, he needed to spend time to familiarize himself with it. Chapter 1636. Very soon. He had successfully refined a 5 elements universe pill. The 7 pill patterns flickered with dazzling light. But to be safe, he refined 2 more pills. Then, he swallowed a 5 elements universe pill and began to break through to the peak. This time, he was lucky and succeeded on his first try. Feeling the surging power in his body, Qin Feiyang was extremely excited. He had finally stepped into the peak. Now he could also begin to break through to the semi-god realm. Lu Zheng opened his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Little cousin, refine a few 5 elements universe bags for me too." Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Lu Zheng's cultivation had already stepped into the 8-star combat emperor realm after eating the barbecue 2 months ago. After another 2 months of hard work, it would not be long before he could step into the 9-star combat emperor realm. At that time, he would use the 5 elements universe pill to directly break through to the peak. After refining more than a dozen 5 elements universe bags, Qin Feiyang gave the pill fire to Dan Wangkai. This made Dan Wangkai extremely happy. With an 8th grade pill furnace and an 8th grade pill fire, he should be able to refine a pill with 6 pill patterns. He tried to refine a few battle chi pills. In the end, he really refined 6 pill patterns. This will undoubtedly be of great help to me, Qin Feiyang muttered. Although Dan Wangkai had been immersed in the Tao of alchemy all these years, and his cultivation had not improved much, in Qin Feiyang's eyes, Dan Wangkai had already become his right-hand man, and could not be separated. Soul refining technique. Looking at Dan Wangkai's back, Qin Feiyang muttered and left the castle. When Willow Tree and the others saw Qin Feiyang, they were stunned. This aura was actually much stronger than before? Ning Mingi smiled bitterly and said, "Young lord, your cultivation progress is a little scary. In just 2 months, you have advanced from a 6-star combat emperor to the peak of a 9-star combat emperor." What? 2 months? Hearing this, Cui Li was dumbfounded. How was it possible to break through from a 6-star combat emperor to the pinnacle combat emperor realm in 2 months? What a joke! Li Yun said helplessly. "This is the truth. We saw it with our own eyes. You have to believe it." Cui Li was dumbfounded. Was he still human? That was too scary. Zhuge Mingyang pursed his lips and said indifferently, "Although you've reached the pinnacle, there's still a long way to go before you can catch up with me. The profound meaning of becoming a god isn't that easy to comprehend. Don't think too highly of yourself. I never thought of catching up to you. You will never be the target that I chase after." Qin Feiyang said. Zhuge Mingyang joked, "But my strength is stronger than yours. There's still a long way to go. Let's wait and see." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and looked at Willow Tree saying, "Let's go." Willow Tree nodded and opened a teleportation door. The 6 of them entered one after another, and landed above the entrance of the Undead Mountain Range. Undead Mountain Range? Cui Li was stunned and asked suspiciously, "What are we doing here?" "We don't know either." Li Yun and the others smiled helplessly and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled but didn't say anything. He went straight into the sky above the mountain range. 2 months had passed, and the destroyed Undead Mountain Range had regained some vitality. The cedars were like large umbrellas that stood tall on the ground and exuded boundless vitality. As Qin Feiyang flew, he suddenly stopped and scanned the cedar trees below. "Why did you stop?" Willow Tree and the others looked at him suspiciously. Zhuge Mingyang's face was filled with fear. All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed in the middle of the cedar forest. He bowed to the cedars in all directions. Li Yin frowned. "What is he trying to do?" "I don't know." Willow Tree shook its head. Huff. After bowing, Qin Feiyang took a deep breath. He looked at the cedar trees around him and said, "For countless years, you all have carried on the will of the deceased. Regardless of wind and rain, you have always protected this pure land. This junior admires you. What are you up to now?" Zhuge Mingyang frowned. "Actually, I shouldn't have disturbed you or implicated you, because this is your root and your home. However, the sages who nurtured you with their blood and bodies also have roots and homes. Although I have never seen them or know them, I can imagine that when they were alive, they must have wanted to return to the homeland that nurtured them. Therefore, I would like to implore everyone to fight side by side with me. We will fight against the guardians to the end and break this cage, so that the souls of the deceased can be released. You carry on the will of the deceased. I believe that you can also feel that if we don't break the Black Tortoise world, their souls will never rest in peace. Qin Feiyang cried out mournfully. I see. Willow Tree and the others suddenly understood. They also felt sad in their hearts. Which one of the people trapped in the Black Tortoise world didn't want to leave? Which one of them didn't want to go home? However, the rules of the Black Tortoise world were like an insurmountable mountain. No matter how capable they were, they could only look at it and stop. Sages, I believe that your souls haven't dissipated and can hear us. I beg you to fight side by side with us. Ning Mingi couldn't help but cry out sorrowfully. Yes, we need you. Li Yin roared. Her voice was like a bell that resounded in all directions. Whoosh! One of the cedars suddenly swayed. However, the other cedars didn't move. Qin Feiyang's spirit rose as he said loudly, I can't promise you anything here, and I can't guarantee that I can take you out of the Black Tortoise world and leave the divine ruins. However, I will try my best, even if it costs me my life. Whoosh! As soon as he said this, the other cedars also swayed. Come, let us work hard together. Let the guardians, let the Creator see that we are not ants that they can casually trample on. We are insignificant people, and we also have dignity. Heaven's might can be defied, but we can't lose our courage. We must show them our determination. We will not stop until we break this cage. Qin Feiyang roared. A shocking battle intent, and an unyielding will rushed out of his body like a volcano erupting. Heaven's might can be defied, but we can't lose our courage. The eyes of Willow Tree and the others trembled. The blood in their bodies was also boiling. A powerful battle intent soared into the sky. That's right. Heaven's might can be defied, but a person's courage must not be lost. Whoosh! Rumble! At the same time, the cedars seemed to be infected by Qin Feiyang as they rose from the ground and flew toward Qin Feiyang. At the same time, a golden beast figure stood proudly at the top of the clouds. It was very small, only about a foot tall. Its entire body was shrouded in a golden light, and its original body couldn't be seen clearly. No aura could be sensed from its body. However, behind the golden beast figure, the guardian python was respectful and didn't have the slightest domineering expression. However, looking at Qin Feiyang below, the killing intent in its eyes was undisguised. Sir, did you see that? This person's actions are no longer ordinary arrogance. He is simply looking down on you and blaspheming the divine might of you and the Creator. This kind of ant shouldn't be allowed to continue living, the giant python said. He is indeed a little arrogant, but don't you think it's interesting? The golden beast figure said playfully. Interesting? The giant python was stunned. Yes. How many years has it been? Finally, there is a human who dares to challenge this emperor and the little emperor. What an interesting thing this is. The golden beast figure nodded. The giant python shook its head and said, This subordinate doesn't find it interesting. This is because you haven't reached the level of this emperor. Do you know what it feels like to be invincible? Boring, empty, lonely, feeling that this life has lost its meaning. The golden beast figure sighed. The giant python secretly rolled its eyes and said anxiously, Sir, the Chang Shui and the castle in this child's hands are heaven-defying artifacts. If we don't get rid of him as soon as possible, I'm afraid he will really pose a threat to us. No matter how heaven-defying the artifact is, this emperor won't put it in his eyes. Let him slowly torment himself. This emperor wants to see how big of a wave he can create. After the golden beast figure finished speaking, it instantly disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1637. Qin Feiyang and the others had no idea about the appearance of the guardian and the golden beast shadow. Cedar trees from all directions flew towards Qin Feiyang in an endless stream. They were even shrinking. In the end, the cedar trees that were hundreds of feet tall all became as long as a finger. They were like small saplings, emitting a hazy divine light. An invisible will poured into Qin Feiyang's mind. These wills contained too many emotions. There was unwillingness. There was anger. There was determination. Qin Feiyang bowed and said, "Thank you for your trust in me. I, Qin Feiyang, will do what I say." Buzz. The cedar trees floating in the void all drilled into Qin Feiyang's body like a swarm of bees. Ning Mingyi was enraged and hurriedly shouted, "Young master, be careful." "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "They were born from the bodies of the predecessors. You can't let them stay in your body," Ning Mingyi said. "Yes. What if they take the opportunity to absorb your bloodline power? Don't you have an ancient castle? Let them go into your ancient castle." Willow Tree also said. Swish. Upon hearing their words, the cedar trees immediately flew to the front of the two of them and started shaking nonstop, as if they were protesting. Qin Feiyang glanced at the cedar trees, his eyes flickering. A moment later, he waved his hand and smiled, looked at Willow Tree and said, "They trust me, and I naturally trust them. I believe that they will definitely not hurt me. Come on." Qin Feiyang opened his hands without the slightest doubt, with a face full of sincerity. Whoosh! At that moment, with the sound of breaking air, all the cedar trees turned into streams of light and drilled into Qin Feiyang's body. Boom! All of a sudden, a majestic life force rushed out from Qin Feiyang's body. At this moment, his entire body seemed to have turned into a spring of life. The plants around him were nourished by this life force and began to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. A short while later, the small saplings grew into towering trees that were more than 100 feet tall. "What's going on?" Willow Tree and the others were bewildered. "I understand. Shui Song has provided the young master with the vitality. In other words, they are telling us that not only will they not harm young master, they will even protect young master in times of crisis," Ning Mingyi said. "I see." Willow Tree was suddenly enlightened. He smiled bitterly and said, "Why do I feel like I'm measuring the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure?" Ning Mingyi also smiled bitterly. "Brother Qin, you've earned a lot. With the help of these cedars, you will have endless life force. In addition, these cedars have the ability of absolute defense. In the future, even false gods like us won't be able to get close to him." Li Yun smiled enviously. Willow Tree and Ning Mingyi also smiled. Only Zhuge Mingyang's face was filled with displeasure. Seeing Qin Feiyang getting stronger day by day, he felt very unbalanced in his heart. At the same time, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and looked at the situation in his body. The cedars did not enter his sea of qi, but were all rooted in his meridians and flesh. At first glance, they looked like tiny light spots that were densely packed together, causing every inch of his flesh and every cell to glow. The huge vitality pervaded his limbs and bones, making him feel an indescribable carefree. "Let's get along in the future," Qin Feiyang said with a smile in his mind. The dots of light flickered, as if responding to Qin Feiyang. Then, tens of thousands of cedars fell silent. The vitality that permeated from Qin Feiyang's body also quickly dissipated. "You're really lucky." Zhuge Mingyang pursed his lips and said sourly. "Lucky?" Qin Feiyang sneered. What did this have to do with luck? It was his sincerity that touched these cedars. "Whatever you say. I don't want to argue with you and waste my breath. Let's go." Qin Feiyang said lightly, then took out the castle and handed it to Willow Tree. "You stay outside with the others and enter the castle when there's a crisis." Willow Tree was stunned and asked, "What about you?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Of course I'll go into seclusion to comprehend the mysteries of becoming a god." "Okay." Willow Tree nodded. After Qin Feiyang entered the castle, Willow Tree and the others immediately set off and flew toward the desert. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyang looked at Ling Yunfei and said with a smile, "Send me to your castle." Ling Yunfei said, "You have to be mentally prepared in advance. The mysteries of becoming a god are not that easy to comprehend." "I know." Qin Feiyang nodded, then looked at the Golden Wolf King and the Silver Wolf King, and said, "You guys come with me too." "Really?" The two beasts looked at Qin Feiyang. Actually, they had also been comprehending the mysteries of becoming a god in the castle, but no one had given them any pointers, and they didn't know where to start. They had also asked Ling Yunfei and Luo Qingzhu, But because the Golden Wolf King had schemed against them many times in the past, the two of them ignored them. This made them very desperate. So at this moment, when they heard Qin Feiyang's words, they were overjoyed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "As long as you guys are honest, I will not treat you unfairly. Don't worry. We will definitely be honest in the future." The two beasts hurriedly promised. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, then looked at Luo Qingzhu and the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and asked suspiciously, "What about you guys? Hasn't your cultivation reached the peak realm? Why are you still here?" The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion said, "Aren't we waiting for you? Come on." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Luo Qingzhu said, "Actually, we can't completely calm down, so we've been waiting here." Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "Then why are you unable to calm down?" Luo Qingzhu said, "Sister Rishwang is worried about her mother's comfort. As for me..." At this point, Luo Qingzhu lowered her head, her cheeks slightly red. "Sister Qingzhu, don't be embarrassed," the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion teased. Luo Qingzhu said angrily, "Sister." The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shook her head and smiled. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Me waiting for you is fake, but Sister Qingzhu waiting for you is real." Qin Feiyang was stunned. This was too sudden. He didn't know what to do for a moment. "That! Ling Yunfei, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and bring us in." After stammering for a while, Qin Feiyang turned to Ling Yunfei and urged. "How unromantic." Ling Yunfei pursed his lips and waved his hand. He brought Qin Feiyang, Luo Qingzhu, the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and the Golden Wolf King to descend above a mountain. The mountains and rivers were majestic and magnificent. The mountain streams were lush with vegetation. Rivers flowed endlessly. By a certain river, Li Jian sat alone on the shore, holding a fishing rod made of willow tree branches in his hand, fishing quietly. Swoosh! Qin Feiyang took a step forward and landed beside Li Jian. He smiled and said, "How's your harvest?" Li Jian hurriedly stood up and said respectfully, "Greetings, young master." "There's no need to be so polite here." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Looking at the fishing rod in Li Jian's hand, he was slightly stunned. He realized that the fishing rod in Li Jian's hand was not tied with a line. Qin Feiyang said in shock, "How are you going to fish like this?" "What I'm fishing is not fish." Li Jian shook his head. "Then what is it?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "It's the state of mind. Fishing is something that requires a lot of patience. Many people will feel irritated when they don't see a fish take the bait for a long time. Especially now like me. Without a fishing line, knowing that I can't catch a fish, I still have to sit here. The irritation in my heart will be even stronger. Therefore, I want to use this method to hone my patience and stabilize my temperament. When I'm completely used to it and won't feel the slightest bit of irritation, my heart will truly calm down." Li Jian smiled. "So that's the case." Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to look at Ling Yunfei and the rest, saying with a smile, "His method is really good." Ling Yunfei and the rest nodded one after another. Qin Feiyang asked, "What about the Scorpion King and the other two beasts?" "I don't know." Li Jian shook his head. "Aren't you guys together? How can you not know?" Qin Feiyang was doubtful. "Don't mention it. I asked them to fish with me, but these four guys left after staying for less than an hour, saying that it was too boring." Li Jian looked helpless. If they can't even calm down, how can they comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god? Ling Yunfei, find them immediately. Qin Feiyang said angrily. Ling Yunfei nodded and closed his eyes. As the owner of this ancient castle, he did not need to look for them. He could know everything with his telepathy. "Bastard!" Suddenly, Ling Yunfei roared. Qin Feiyang and the rest were shocked. Ling Yunfei said angrily, "These four bastards, they actually..." He was out of breath and could not say anything for a long time. Even the top of his head was smoking. What happened? Why is this guy so angry? Qin Feiyang and the rest were suspicious. Ling Yunfei said, "Let's not talk about it. I'll take you there directly." Li Jian immediately put down the fishing rod in his hand. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Don't go lest it spoils your state of mind. Okay. Li Jian nodded. Ling Yunfei waved his hand, and an invisible force shrouded them. At that moment, Qin Feiyang and the rest felt their bodies lighten. And the next moment, they arrived above a canyon. The canyon was very large and surrounded by mountains. There was a lake in the middle, but it was not filled with water, but a kind of crystal-clear liquid. And on the surrounding cliffs, there were beehives of different sizes hanging. The big beehives were hundreds of feet high, like mountains. The small ones could also be dozens of feet high. Blood-red bees were flying around the beehives. That's right. These were the blood-devouring bees that Qin Feiyang subdued in the miracle. And the liquid in the lake was also the beehive that everyone swept. However, at this moment, there were actually 4 big guys soaking in the beehive. It felt like taking a bath. These 4 guys were the Scorpion King's 4 beasts. Boss Qin, you're finally here. Quickly take care of them. These beehive were painstakingly refined before. We can't let it be wasted like this. This is simply a waste of God's gift. Chapter 1638. Boss Qin. The Scorpion King and the other 2 beasts jumped out like frightened rabbits when they heard the sound of the blood-devouring bees. When they looked up and saw Qin Feiyang, they felt despair as if they saw Qin Feiyang's angry eyes. Get over here. Qin Feiyang said angrily. The 4 beasts shuddered and quickly ran to Qin Feiyang, lowering their heads like 4 children who had done something wrong. Good for you. I asked you to come here to comprehend the mysteries of becoming a god, but you came here to take a bath. You really know how to enjoy yourself. Qin Feiyang said. No. We were wrong, we won't do it again. The 4 beasts quickly took the initiative to admit their mistake. The blood-devouring bee's beehive is a rare treasure. You think you can just say you were wrong after taking a bath in it? How will Boss Qin and the others drink it in the future? The Golden Wolf King and Silver Wolf King sneered, their eyes full of gloating. Ever since they followed Qin Feiyang, the 4 beasts had not been nice to them, and they had long been resentful in their hearts. Now that there was such a good opportunity, how could they miss it? It would be a waste of this opportunity if they didn't hit them when they were down. Shut up. The 4 beasts raised their eyebrows and glared at the Golden Wolf King and Silver Wolf King. Qin Feiyang shouted. You should be the one to shut up. Tell me, how are you going to deal with this? The 4 beasts immediately lowered their heads and said, We accept the punishment. Good. That's what you said. Lie down. Qin Feiyang said. The 4 beasts quickly lay down in the void. Qin Feiyang looked at the blood-devouring bees around and said, All of you, come here and beat them up. Don't show mercy. What? The 4 beasts trembled. There were so many blood-devouring bees. Beating them up. Wasn't this asking for their lives? Boss Qin, we were really wrong, can you spare us? We won't dare to do it again. The 4 beasts raised their heads and looked at Qin Feiyang with pitiful expressions. Qin Feiyang remained unmoved, and said, Golden Wolf King, Silver Wolf King, you 2 stay here and supervise them. If they dare to resist, immediately send me a message, and I'll erase their souls. Understood. The Golden Wolf King and the Golden Wolf King immediately perked up. The Golden Wolf King looked at the blood-devouring bees and roared, Beat them up! Beat them up! Don't give us any face! Cough cough. Silver Wolf King coughed dryly and said in a low voice, Big brother, I said the wrong thing. The Golden Wolf King was stunned for a moment. Then he quickly changed his words. I mean, beat him up. Don't give Boss Qin any face. The Crocodile Emperor was furious. You 2 bastards. Are you trying to hit me when I'm down? Is there? Now that Boss Qin ordered us to beat you up, what can we do? Yeah, as subordinates, we can only follow orders. So you have to understand. Don't worry, there aren't that many blood-devouring bees. It'll be over soon. The Golden Wolf King and the Golden Wolf King snickered. The Crocodile Emperor and the other beasts looked at the swarm of blood-devouring bees that looked like a sea of blood, and wanted to curse. That's not many? Ah. But before they could curse, more than 10 blood-devouring bees swarmed forward, waving their claws and hitting the heads of the 4 beasts. Be gentle. It hurts. The Ant Emperor roared. As long as you know the pain, enjoy it. Qin Feiyang let out a cold snort. He turned his head to look at Ling Yunfei and asked, "Where are the divine infant tree, the tree of fortune, and the medicinal herbs we obtained from the divine ruins?" Ling Yunfei glared at the crocodile emperor and the other beasts, then turned and pointed at a plain not far away. There. The group flew over. The plain was next to the canyon, covering an area of about 3 miles. The tree of creation, and countless herbs were planted in the center of the plain, shining with a hazy glow. A river ran through the entire plain. The river was clear, and both sides were green. Occasionally, a few blooming flowers could be seen. Qin Feiyang looked around and looked at Ling Yunfei and the others. He smiled and said, "I think this place is not bad. Let's stay here from now on." "Sure." Ling Yunfei nodded. Luo Qingzhu and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house had no objections. "What do you think about the mysteries of becoming a god?" Luo Qingzhu asked. "My mother once told me that the mysteries of becoming a god are only 12 words. As long as you understand these 12 words, success will follow naturally." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. Qin Feiyang said, "Don't forget your original intention. Don't forget your heart, and only then can you achieve results. Is that right?" "Yes." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house nodded. Ling Yunfei said, "Uncle Yuan told us the same." "Then how do you understand these 12 words?" Qin Feiyang asked. "My understanding is that not forgetting one's original intention is to not forget the naivety and kindness before cultivation. In other words, childlike innocence. Not forgetting one's heart is to not forget one's duty as a human," Ling Yunfei said. "I have the same idea as Ling Yunfei," Luo Qingzhu said. "My opinion is a little different. I think that not forgetting one's original intention and not forgetting one's heart should be to not forget why we cultivate. That's because everyone has a dream or a wish before they step onto the path of cultivation," the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house said. "It doesn't sound wrong." Ling Yunfei nodded. "No, I don't agree." Luo Qingzhu shook her head. "Why?" The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house looked at her suspiciously. "I'm sure everyone has a dream before they cultivate. But there are differences in dreams. Some want to protect their loved ones. Some do it for survival. Some do it for power. Some do it for money. There are also some who do it for revenge. Wait. I'm divided into 2 categories, good and evil. And according to my understanding, the original intention and heart should represent kindness. If according to what you said, not forgetting one's original intention and not forgetting one's heart is to not forget why we cultivate, then wouldn't that be encouraging the evil thoughts of those evil people? Luo Qingzhu said. What you said makes sense. Ling Yunfei nodded. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house did not refute. She turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "What's your understanding?" Actually, I've been thinking about this question for a long time. I've also asked many people. For example, Uncle Yuan, Elder Qin, Second Grandpa. I remember that Second Grandpa once said something. Let go of everything and return to one's original intention and heart. According to my understanding. First of all, we have to calm ourselves down and slowly forget everything that happened in the past, as well as all the obsessions in our hearts. For example, greed, resentment, desire, ambition, and so on. It seems that someone once said with certainty that although my talent is good, it's impossible for me to become a god in this lifetime. The reason is that my obsession is too deep. I also admit this point. Otherwise, the inner demons wouldn't have been born. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. Who said that? Ling Yunfei frowned. I forgot. It seems to be Mu Tianyang, the imperial preceptor, and Emperor Hong. But that's not important. The important thing is, how do we let go of these obsessions? After all, in everyone's heart, there is something that they can't give up. Some people are family, some people are hatred. There are too many, and it's hard to explain. Qin Feiyang said. The 3 of them fell silent. Don't forget your original intention. Don't forget your original intention. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. What you said actually makes sense, but I feel that it's not deep enough. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House said. Then what do you think is deeper? What does a newborn baby look like? Qin Feiyang asked back. A newborn baby? The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House was stunned and said. A newborn baby doesn't know anything, and doesn't even have self-awareness. Isn't it equivalent to a piece of blank paper? That's right. A person's life is originally a piece of pure white paper. The good and evil were filled in as they grew up, as they schemed against each other, as they killed, struggled, and sought survival. They were filled in one stroke at a time. Although this can make our lives colorful, under the temptation of desire, it will also make us lose our original intention and forget the innate purity that should belong to us. For example, the four of us. Our hearts are now stained with too much dust, and this dust is already deeply rooted and difficult to remove. And this so-called dust is the 7 emotions and 6 desires. I think that not forgetting our original intention, should be for us to cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires and return to this piece of blank paper. Qin Feiyang said. Cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Ling Yunfei muttered, shook his head, and said with a bitter smile, who doesn't have the 7 emotions and 6 desires in this world? Cut off. It's easier said than done. That's right. It's easier said than done. Qin Feiyang sighed. He didn't know about the others, but he was very clear about himself. The obsession in his heart was too deep. He really didn't have the confidence or courage. There were some things that he couldn't let go of. The Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House had been in deep thought with her head lowered. Suddenly, she looked up at everyone and said, after listening to your words, I seem to have been enlightened. You guys chat first, I'll go into seclusion. With that, without waiting for Qin Feiyang and the others to respond, she quickly walked to the tree of creation, sat down cross-legged and closed her eyes. So fast. Ling Yunfei was stunned. I seem to have caught a hint of inspiration too. You guys chat. Luo Qingzhu said, and also walked to the side of the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix House. She sat cross-legged on the ground and closed her eyes to enter a meditative state. What's the situation with these 2 women? Could it be that their comprehension is better than the 2 of us? Ling Yunfei looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Maybe. Qin Feiyang smiled. Ling Yunfei pursed his lips and said, I won't admit defeat. I'll also go and think about it. You can slowly walk around by yourself. You're really impatient. Qin Feiyang shook his head. However, not forgetting his original intention, not forgetting his heart, was it really that simple? Although he felt that what he said before was very reasonable, he always felt that there should be something that he hadn't thought of. But what was it? He couldn't think of anything at all, and had no idea where to start. He felt that this was already his limit. I don't want to think about it anymore. You haven't even calmed down. Why are you still thinking about this? Aren't you just daydreaming? A moment later, Qin Feiyang shook his head and mocked himself. He raised his head and looked at Ling Yunfei and the other 2, then strolled around. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.